Aloha. Please let me know if anything is too loud or insane. Hello, youths. How's it going? I exist. I'm here with a book and everything. Is it my first top pick of book? No, but I have done my best with what I can find. The book is beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. I feel like I could shift my little person up a touch. Hold on. There you go. We have moved up very slightly. However, now it looks slightly weird with my hands, so we're actually gonna just move down a touch also. I've been fiddling around with this for so long. It's been a little bit ridiculous, honestly. But hey, we're here, and it's finally kind of working-ish. We even have a new background. I couldn't find a library. I gave up. It is what it is. I've started farming on the server. Ah, very nice. Am I going to be coming to you for all of my crops soon? This is ideal. Give me all the crops. The background is beautiful. Thanks. It's the Aurora Borealis. And the little sparkly things move very slightly. So, you know, fun. I'm not doing food farming, I'm farming for resources. Right. Gotcha, gotcha. Is it so far going well? I have crops for different resources. Oh. Sounds good. Apparently it's in the starting phase. Right. Good to know. Well, feel free to throw me in the background while you enjoy your farmingses. Thanks for lurking, Godcat. We are reading Inkheart, which is like a major nostalgia pick for me, which is why we're reading it. I hope it goes well. Please let me know if anything breaks or is going insane or so on and etc. You know what I mean. You guys know. I'm gonna start reading now. I'm gonna fucking just read until I get tired, I think. I will say there is magic involved where I have to do a ritual to create different resources. Well, it sounds funky. You're not summoning any demons, are you? That doesn't sound overly ideal. Like, don't break any lives. I'll lurk and listen. Okay. You lurk and listen. No demons involved. I'm glad. Very good. That's preferred, really. I've not read aloud in a very long time. So please excuse me if I sound awkward. Because I mostly read in my head. Who would have guessed? Anyway. This is chapter 1 of Inkheart, A Stranger in the Night. Yeah, definitely going for the awkwardness here. It'll be fine once I start, right? It'll be fine once I start. It's just the awkwardness of getting started. A very slight embarrassment. Hee hee. Haha. It's fine. We're gonna move my keyboard somewhere else. Where can I shimmy this? Right, we've shimmied. Why am I shaking? This is so weird. Hello, Nagi. Welcome in. How's it going? Don't mind me. I'm awkwardly attempting to start reading out loud. Somehow it feels like a very big, scary deal, despite the fact that it's definitely not. Are you nervous reading for us? Weirdly, yeah. Normally I'm not nervous reading or speaking out loud, but for some reason, yes, I'm oddly nervous to read out loud. I don't know what to do, but I'm fine. Fair enough. I mean, you could do some Minecraft. Everyone else is on Minecraft right now. Jordan's got a server. How are you? Doing swell. Oddly nervous, but swell. It's been great. I'm not insane. You guys are insane. My book's falling apart a little bit because it's so well read. But, you know, I'm not on the server. You're not running? This is depressing. Malika got off to play with her French husband. Taylor left to sleep. Wow. I can't believe everyone abandoned you like this. You got this? Thanks! Thanks. I've read this book like a million times, so hopefully I'll know it enough to not fuck up too intensely when actually reading, when we actually get around to it. I'd also left since I wanted to eat. Very valid. Are we all well fed and time to see me read? Yeah! We ready? Oh my god, this is gonna be really underwhelming for people now that I'm getting nervous about it. They're gonna be like, oh my god, is she a really great reader? No, guys. I might, if we find a goblin character, I might attempt to read in a goblin voice, but I make no promises to this fact because I'm nervous enough just to start reading. Keeps feeling like I need to cough, and I definitely don't. Godly reader. Trust, guys. I mean, it sounds the same as how I regularly sound. Like, I expect that I don't sound any different, right? Logically, I don't sound any different. Maybe if we have like a fun chapter with a bunch of stuff happens, I'll make a little clip of it and we can do like an excerpt. And I'll put it on social media and be cool and everyone will love it. Your voice suits for reading. Thanks. This is what I'm hoping as well. It really feels like I have to cough. Hold on. I don't think that helped. I think it's a nervous cough. I'm gonna start. I'm sure I'll cough the cough out. I'm tempted. Didn't want to leave me. It's fine. Everything's fine. Reading. I'm good at it. Voice suits it, according to Yeats. Which is ideal. We're, yeah, going. Fucking if I do eventually do a karaoke stream, I think it's going to go exactly the same way as this, by the way, where I'm going to just be really fucking nervous. I don't have stage fright. I have been on a stage. A few times. It's fine. I'm starting. We'll get a leak on the karaoke stream and you'll be fine. Excellent. Sounds like a plan. Let's do that. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. We'll be fine. Be wonderful. Let's go. Let's read. Let's read, guys. Fucking for some reason, I keep speaking, right? And my brain keeps going like, Holly, if you start actually reading, do you know what's going to happen? You're going to fail and choke on the first word. This is what's going to happen. You're going to choke. You're going to eat shit on the first fucking word when you start. You're talking perfectly fine right now, but you will eat shit on the first word. I hope you're ready for that. So thank you, brain. Do you guys want music? Do you want, like, some little piano music? You won't judge. Thank you. Do you want some piano music? I can give you piano music. Is this what we want? Sure. I mean, only if you want the piano music. Do you want it or not want it? You'll be fine. I'm trying to believe in myself, but my brain is fully like, you're gonna eat shit, gully pop. The first word is rain. Every single time I look at it, I'm like, you're gonna somehow mispronounce rain. This is what's gonna happen, Holly. You're gonna mispronounce rain. It's fine either way. Okay, I'll leave it for now. If anyone wants some calming, gentle music, then we can have some calming, gentle music. Should have done a fucking, I don't know, throat thing, cleanse that musician. You know, singers do like fancy singery things. Okay, I'm starting. Jesus Christ. I feel like I'm holding books wrong. I'm losing it. I'm not losing it. It's fine. Yeah. I'm not stooling. That's crazy talk. I have never stooled once in my life, guys. I'm not stooling. No. Let me be nervous. God damn it. I've only been talking shit for, okay, I've been talking shit for 30 minutes. Fucking hell. I didn't realize it was that long. My apologies. I will start now. I swear to God. So, Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. Love her. This is chapter 1, A Stranger in the Night. Rain fell that night, a fine whispering rain. Many years later, Maggie had only to close her eyes and she would still hear it, like tiny fingers tapping on the window pane. A dog barked somewhere in the darkness, and however often she tossed and turned, Maggie couldn't get to sleep. The book she had been reading was under her pillow, pressing its covers against her ear as if to lure her back into its printed pages. I'm sure it must be very comfortable sleeping with a hard, rectangular thing like that under your head, her father had teased the first time he found a book under her pillow. Go on, admit it. The book whispers its story to you at night. Sometimes, yes, Maggie had said, but it only works for children, which made Mo tweak her nose. Mo. Maggie had never called her father anything else. That night, when so much began and so many things changed forever, Maggie had one of her favourite books under her pillow, and since the rain wouldn't let her sleep, she sat up, rubbed the drowsiness from her eyes, and took it out. Its pages rustled promisingly when she opened it. Maggie thought this first whisper sounded a little different from one book to another, depending on whether or not she already knew the story it was going to tell her, but she needed light. She had a box of matches hidden in the drawer of her bedside table. Mo had forbidden her to light candles at night. He didn't like fire. Fire devours books, he always said. But she was 12 years old. She could surely be trusted to keep an eye on a couple of candle flames. Maggie loved to read by candlelight. She had 5 candlesticks on the windowsill, and she was just holding the lighted match to one of the black wicks when she heard footsteps outside. She blew out the match in alarm. Oh, how well she remembered it even many years later, and knelt to look out of the window, which was wet with rain. Then she saw him. Sorry. The rain cast a kind of pallor on the darkness, and the stranger was little more than a shadow. Only his face gleamed white as he looked up at Maggie. His hair clung to his wet forehead. The rain was falling on him, but he ignored it. He stood there motionless, arms crossed over his chest as if that might at least warm him a little, and he kept on staring at the house. I must go and wake Mo, thought Maggie. But she stayed put, her heart thudding, and went on gazing out into the night as if the stranger's stillness had infected her. Suddenly he turned his head, and Maggie felt as if he were looking straight into her eyes. She shot off the bed so fast the open book fell to the floor, and she ran barefoot out into the dark corridor. This was the end of May, but it was chilly in the old house. There was still a light on in Mo's room. He often stayed up reading late into the night. Maggie had inherited her love of books from her father. When she took refuge from a bad dream with him, nothing could lull her to sleep better than Mo's calm breathing beside her and the sound of the pages turning. Nothing chased nightmares away faster than the rustle of printed paper. But the figure outside the house was no dream. The book Mo was reading that night was bound in pale blue linen. Later, Maggie remembered that too. What unimportant details stuck in the memory. Mo, there's someone out in the yard. Her father raised his head and looked at her with the usual absent expression he wore when she interrupted his reading. It always took him a few moments to find his way out of that other world, the labyrinth of printed letters. Someone out in the yard? Are you sure? Yes, he's staring at our house. Mo put down his book. So what were you reading before you went to sleep? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Maggie frowned. Please, Mo, come and look. He didn't believe her, but he went anyway. Maggie tugged him along the corridor so impatiently that he stubbed his toe on a pile of books, which was hardly surprising. Stacks of books were piled high all over the house, not just arranged in neat rows on bookshelves the way other people kept them. Oh no. The books in Mo and Maggie's house were stacked under tables, on chairs, in the corners of the rooms. There were books in the kitchen and books in the lavatory, books on the TV set and in the wardrobe. Small piles of books, tall piles of books, books thin and thick, books old and new. They welcomed Maggie down to breakfast with invitingly opened pages. They kept boredom at bay when the weather was bad, and sometimes she fell over them. "He's just standing there," whispered Maggie, leading Mo into her room. "Has he got a hairy face? If so, he could be a werewolf." "Stop it," Maggie looked at him sternly, although his jokes made her feel less scared. Already she hardly believed any more in the figure standing in the rain until she knelt down again in the window. "There, do you see him?" she whispered. Mo looked out through the raindrops running down the pane and said nothing. "Didn't you promise burglars would never break into our house because there's nothing here to steal?" whispered Maggie. "He's not a burglar," replied Mo, but as he stepped back from the window, his face was so grave that Maggie's heart thudded faster than ever. "Go back to bed, Maggie," he said. "This visitor has come to see me." He left the room before Maggie could ask what kind of visitor, for goodness sake, would turn up in the middle of the night. She followed him anxiously. As she crept down the corridor, she heard her father taking the chain off the front door, and when she reached the hall, she saw him standing in the open doorway. The night came in, dark and damp, and the rushing of the rain sounded loud and threatening. "Dustfinger," called Mo into the darkness. "Is that you?" Dustfinger? What kind of name was that? Maggie couldn't remember ever hearing it before, yet it sounded familiar, like a distant memory that wouldn't take shape properly. At first all seemed still outside except for the rain falling, murmuring as if the night had found its voice. But then footsteps approached the house, and the man emerged from the darkness of the yard, his long coat so wet with rain that it clung to his legs. For a split second, as the stranger stepped into the light spilling out of the house, Maggie thought she saw a small furry head over his shoulder, snuffling as it looked out of his rucksack and then quickly disappearing back into it. Dustfinger wiped his wet face with his sleeve and offered Mo his hand. "How are you, Silvertongue?" he asked. "It's been a long time." Hesitantly, Mo took the outstretched hand. "A very long time," he said, looking past his visitor as if he expected to see another figure emerge from the night. "Come in, you'll catch your death. Maggie says you've been standing out there for some time." Maggie. Ah, yes, of course. Dustfinger let Mo lead him into the house. He scrutinized Maggie so thoroughly that she felt quite embarrassed and didn't know where to look. In the end, she just stared back. "She's grown. You remember her?" "Of course." Maggie noticed that Mo double-locked the door. "How old is she now?" Dustfinger smiled at her. It was a strange smile. Maggie couldn't decide whether it was mocking, supercilious, or just awkward. She didn't smile back. 12, said Mo. 12, my word. Dustfinger pushed his dripping hair back from his forehead. It reached almost to his shoulders. Maggie wondered what colour it was when it was dry. The stubble around his narrow-lipped mouth was gingery, like the fur of the stray cat Maggie sometimes fed with a saucer of milk outside the door. Ginger hair sprouted on his cheeks, too, sparse as a boy's first beard, but not long enough to hide 3 long, pale scars. They made Dustfinger's face look as if it had been smashed and stuck back together again. 12, he repeated. Of course, she was... Let's see, she was 3 then, wasn't she? Mo nodded. Come on, I'll find you some dry clothes. Impatiently, as if he was suddenly in a hurry to hide the man from Maggie, he led his visitor across the hall. "And Maggie," he said over his shoulder, "you go back to sleep." Then, without another word, he closed his workshop door. Maggie stood there, rubbing her cold feet together. Go back to sleep. Sometimes, when they'd stayed up late yet again, Mo would toss her down on her bed like a bag of walnuts. Sometimes he chased her around the house after supper until she escaped into her room, breathless with laughter. And sometimes he was so tired he lay down on the sofa and she made him a cup of coffee before she went to bed. He had never, ever sent her off to her room so brusquely. A foreboding, clammy, and fearful came into her heart, as if, along with the visitor, his name was so strange, yet somehow familiar. Some menace had slipped into her life, and she wished, so hard it frightened her, that she had never fetched Mo, and Dustfinger had stayed outside until the rain washed him away. When the door of the workshop opened again, she jumped. "Still there, I see," said Mo. "Go to bed, Meggie, please." He had that little frown over his nose that appeared only when something was really worrying him, and he seemed to look straight through her as if his thoughts were somewhere else entirely. The foreboding in Maggie's heart grew, spreading black wings. "Send him away, Mo," she said as he gently propelled her towards her room. "Please, send him away. I don't like him." Mo leaned in her open doorway. "He'll be gone when you get up in the morning. Word of honour." "Word of honour? No crossed fingers?" Maggie looked him straight in the eye. She could always tell when Mo was lying, however hard he tried to hide it from her. "No crossed fingers," he said, holding both hands out to show her. Then he closed her door, even though he knew she didn't like that. Maggie put her ear to it, listening. She could hear the clink of china, so the man with the sandy beard was getting a nice cup of tea to warm him up. "I hope he catches pneumonia," thought Maggie, though he needn't necessarily die of it. Maggie heard the kettle whistling in the kitchen, and Mo carrying a tray of clattering crockery back to the workshop. When that door closed, she forced herself to wait a few more seconds just to be on the safe side. Then she crept back out into the passage. There was a notice hanging on the door of Mo's workshop, a small metal plaque. Maggie knew the words on it by heart. When she was 5, she had often practiced reading the old-fashioned spindly lettering. Some books should be tasted, some devoured, but only a few should be chewed and digested thoroughly. Back then, when she still had to climb in a box to read the plaque, she had thought the chewing and disgusting were meant literally, and wondered, horrified, why Mo had hung on his workshop door the words of someone who vandalized books. Now she knew what the plaque really meant, but tonight she wasn't interested in written words. Spoken words were what she wanted to hear, the words being exchanged in soft, almost inaudible whispers by the 2 men on the other side of the door. "Don't underestimate him," she heard Dustfinger say. His voice was so different from Mo's. No one else in the world had a voice like her father's. Mo could paint pictures in the empty air with his voice alone. He'd do anything to get hold of it. That was Dustfinger again. "And when I say anything, I can assure you I mean anything." "I'll never let him have it," that was Mo. "He'd still get his hands on it, one way or another. I tell you that on your trail." "It wouldn't be the first time. I've always managed to shake them off before." "Oh yes, and for how much longer, do you think? What about your daughter? Are you telling me she actually likes moving around the whole time? Believe me, I know what I'm talking about." It was so quiet behind the door that Maggie scarcely dared breathe in case the 2 men heard her. Finally, her father spoke again, hesitantly, as if his tongue found it difficult to form the words. "Then what do you think I ought to do?" "Come with me. I'll take you to them." A cup clinked, the sound of a spoon against china. How loud, small now. I think I've accidentally got my headset up to 100. Hold on. Okay, I fixed it. My apologies even. How loud small noises sound in a silence. You know how much Capricorn thinks of your talents. You'd be glad if you took it to him of your own free will. I'm sure he would. The man he found to replace you is useless. Capricorn, another peculiar name. Dustfinger had uttered it as if the mere sound might scorch his tongue. Maggie wriggled her chilly toes and wrinkled her cold nose. She didn't understand much of what the 2 men were saying, but she tried to memorize every single word of it. It was quiet again in the workshop. "Oh, I don't know," said Mo at last. He sounded so weary that it tore at Maggie's heart. "I'll have to think about it. When do you think his men will get here?" "Soon." The word dropped like a stone into the silence. "Soon," repeated Mo. "Very well. I'll have made up my mind by tomorrow. Do you have somewhere to sleep?" "Oh, I can always find a place," replied Dustfinger. I'm managing quite well these days, although it's still much too fast for me. His laugh was not a happy one. But I'd like to know what you decide. May I come back tomorrow, about midday? Yes, of course. I'll be picking Maggie up from school at 1:30. Come after that. Maggie heard a chair being pushed back and scurried back to her room. When the door of the workshop opened, she was just closing her bedroom door behind her, pulling the covers up to her chin. She lay there listening as her father said goodbye to Dustfinger. And thank you for the warning anyway, she heard him add as Dustfinger's footsteps moved away, slowly and uncertainly, as if he were reluctant to leave, as if he hadn't said everything he'd wanted to say. But at last he was gone, and only the rain kept drumming its wet fingers on Maggie's window. When Mo opened the door of her room, she quickly closed her eyes and tried to breathe as slowly as you do in a deep, innocent sleep. But Mo wasn't stupid. In fact, he was sometimes terribly clever. Maggie, put one of your feet out of bed, he told her. Reluctantly, she stuck her toes out from under the blanket and laid them in Mo's warm hand. They were still cold. I knew it, he said. You've been spying. Can't you do as I tell you, just for once? Sighing, he tucked her foot back underneath the nice warm blankets. Then he sat down on her bed, passed his hands over his tired face, and looked out of the window. His hair was as dark as moleskin. Maggie had fair hair like her mother, who she knew only from a few faded photographs. You should be glad you look more like her than me, Mo always said. My head wouldn't look at all good on a girl's neck. But Maggie wished she did look more like him. There wasn't a face in the world she loved more. I didn't hear what you were saying anyway, she murmured. Good. Mo stared out of the window as if Dustfinger was still standing in the yard. Then he rose and went to the door. Try to get some sleep, he said. But Maggie didn't want to sleep. Dustfinger? What sort of a name is that? She asked. And why does he call you Silver Tongue? Mo did not reply. And this person who's looking for you? I heard what Dustfinger called him. Capricorn. Who is he? No one you want to meet. Her father didn't turn around. I thought you didn't hear anything. Good night, Maggie. This time he left her door open. The light from the passage fell on her bed, mingling with the darkness of the night that seeped in through the window, and Maggie lay there waiting for the dark to disappear and take her fear of some evil menace away with it. Only later did she understand that the evil had not appeared for the first time that night. It had just slunk back in again. Chapter 2. Secrets. It was early dawn when Maggie woke up. Night was fading over the fields as if the rain had washed the darkness out of the hem of its garment. The alarm clock said just before 5, and Maggie was going to turn over and go back to sleep when she suddenly sensed someone else in the room. Startled, she sat up and saw Mo standing by her open wardrobe. Hello, he said, putting her favourite sweater in a case. I'm sorry, I know it's very early, but we have to leave. How about cocoa for breakfast? Still drowsy with sleep, Maggie nodded. Outside, the birds were twittering loudly as if they'd been awake for hours. Mo put 2 more pairs of jeans in her case, closed it, and carried it to the door. Wear something warm, he said. It's chilly outside. Where are we going? Asked Maggie, but he had already disappeared. She looked out of the window, feeling confused. She almost expected to see Dustfinger, but there was only a blackbird in the yard, hopping over the stones which were wet after the rain. Maggie put on her jeans and stumbled into the kitchen. 2 suitcases, a travelling bag, and Mo's toolbox stood out in the hall. Her father was sitting at the kitchen table making sandwiches for the journey. When she came into the kitchen, he looked up briefly and smiled at her, but Maggie could see he was worried about something. Mo, we can't go away now, she said. The school holidays don't start for another week. Well, it won't be the first time I've had to go away on business in your term time. He was right about that. In fact, he went away quite often. Whenever an antique dealer, a book collector, or a library needed a bookbinder and commissioned Mo to restore a few valuable old books, ridding them of dust and mould or dressing them in new clothes, as he put. Maggie didn't think the word bookbinder described Mo's work particularly well, and a few years ago she made him a notice to hang on his workshop door saying Mortimer Folchart, book doctor. And the book doctor never calls on his patients without taking his daughter too. They'd always done that, and they always would. Never mind what Maggie's teachers said. How about chicken pox? Have I used that excuse already? Yes, last time when we had to go and see that dreary man with the Bibles. Maggie scrutinised her father's face. Mo, is it because of last night we have to leave? For a moment she thought he was going to tell her everything, whatever there was to tell. But then he shook his head. No, of course not, he said, putting the sandwiches he had made in a plastic bag. Your mother has an aunt called Eleanor. We visited her once when you were very small. She's been wanting me to come and put her books in order for a long time. She lives beside a lake in the north of Italy. I always forget which lake, but it's a lovely place. A day's drive away. He did not look at her as he spoke. Maggie wanted to ask, but why do we have to go now? But she didn't. Nor did she ask if he had forgotten that he was meeting someone at midday. She was too afraid of the answers, and she didn't want Mo to lie to her again. Is this aunt as peculiar as the others? Was all she said. Mo had already taken her to visit various relations. Both he and Maggie's mother had large families whose homes, so far as Maggie could see, were scattered over half of Europe. Mo smiled. Yes, she is a bit peculiar, but you'll get on with her all right. She has some really wonderful books. How long are we going to be away? It could be quite some time. Maggie sipped her cocoa. It was so hot that she burned her lips and had to quickly press the cold blade of a knife to her mouth. Mo pushed his chair back. I have to pack a few more things from the workshop, he said. It won't take long. You must be very tired, but you can sleep once we're in the van. Maggie just nodded and looked out of the kitchen window. It was a grey morning. Mist drifted over the fields at the foot of the nearby hills, and Maggie felt as if the shadows of the night were still hiding among the trees. Pack up the food and take plenty to read, Mo called from the hall, as if she didn't always. Years ago he had made her a box to hold her favourite books on all their journeys, short and long, near and far. It's a good idea to have your own books with you in a strange place, Mo always said. He himself always took at least a dozen. Mo had painted the box poppy red. Poppies were Maggie's favourite flower. They pressed well between the pages of a book, and you could stamp a star-shaped pattern on your skin with their pepper pot seed capsules. He had decorated the box and painted Maggie's treasure chest in lovely curly lettering on the lid. The box was lined with shiny black taffeta, but you could hardly see any of the fabric because Maggie had a great many favourite books, and she always added another whenever they travelled anywhere. If you take a book with you on a journey, Mo had said when he put the first one in her box, an odd thing happens. The book begins collecting your memories, and forever after you have only to open that book to be back where you first read it. It will all come into your mind with the very first words, the sights you saw in that place, what it smelled like, the ice cream you ate while you were reading it. Yes, books are like fly papers. Memories cling to the printed page better than anything else. He was probably right, but there was another reason why Maggie took her books whenever they went away. They were her home when she was somewhere strange. Familiar voices, friends that never quarrelled with her, clever, powerful friends, daring and knowledgeable, tried and tested adventurers who had travelled far and wide. Her books cheered her up when she was sad and kept her from being bored, while Mo cut leather and fabric to the right size and restitched old pages that over countless years had grown fragile from the many fingers slipping through them. Some of her books always went away with Maggie. Others were left at home because they weren't right for where she was going, or to make room for new, unknown stories that she hadn't yet read. Maggie stroked their curved spines. Which books would she take this time? Which stories would help to drive away the fear that had crept into the house last night? I know, thought Maggie. Why not a story about telling lies? Mo told her lies. He told terrible lies, even though he knew that every time he told one she looked hard at his nose. Pinocchio, thought Maggie. No, too sinister and too sad. But she wanted something exciting. A story to drive all other thoughts out of her head, even the darkest. The witches, yes. She'd take the bald-headed witches who turned children into mice, and the Odyssey with the Cyclops and the Enchantress who transforms his warriors into pigs. Her journey could hardly be more dangerous than his, could it? On the left-hand side of the box, there were 2 picture books that Maggie had used when she was teaching herself to read. 5 years old she'd been, and you could still see where her tiny forefinger had moved over the pages. And right at the bottom, hidden under all the others, were the books Maggie had made herself. She had spent days sticking them together and cutting up the paper. She had painted picture after picture, and Mo had to write what they were underneath them. An angel with a happy face from Maggie for Mo. She had written her name herself, although back then she always left the E off the end. Maggie looked at the clumsy lettering and put the little book back in the box. Mo had helped her with the binding, of course. He had bound all her homemade books in brightly patterned paper, and he had given her a stamp for the others so that she could print her name and the head of a unicorn on the title page, sometimes in black ink and sometimes in red, depending how she felt. But Mo had never read aloud to her from her books, not once. He had tossed Maggie up in the air, he had carried her around the house on his shoulders, he had taught her how to make a bookmark out of blackbird's feathers, but he had never read aloud to her. Never once, not a single word, however often she put books on his lap. Maggie just had to teach herself how to decipher the black marks and open the treasure chest. She straightened up. There was still room in the box. Perhaps Mo had a new book she could take. A specially big, fat, wonderful book. The door to his workshop was closed. Mo, Maggie pressed the handle down. The long table where he worked had been swept clean, with not a stamp nor a knife in sight. Mo had packed everything. Had he been lying after all? Maggie went into the workshop and looked around. The door to the treasury was open. The treasury was really just a lumber room, but Maggie had given the little cubby hole that name because it was where her father stored his most precious materials. The finest leather, the most beautiful fabrics, marbled paper, stamps to print patterns in gold on soft leather. Maggie put her head round the open door and saw Mo covering a book with brown paper. It was not a particularly large book, and not especially fat. The green linen binding looked worn, but that was all Maggie could see, because Mo quickly hid the book behind his back as soon as he noticed her. "What are you doing here?" he snapped. For a moment Maggie was speechless with shock. Mo's face was so dark. "I only wanted to ask if you had a new book for me. I've read all the ones in my room and—" Mo passed his hand over his face. "Yes, of course. I'm sure I can find something," he said. But his eyes were still saying, go away, Maggie." And the brown paper crackled behind his back. "I'll be with you in a moment," he said. "I have a few more things to pack, okay?" A little later he brought her 3 books, but the one he had been covering with brown paper wasn't one of them. And we have an ad starting soon. We can read through the ad, I expect. An hour later, they were taking everything out into the yard. Ad's happening? Yes, it says on my little dashboard thing that an ad is starting soon, but I don't know entirely when it's happening until the little message pops up saying we've got an ad. You've got a, what's it called? A sub. So you won't deal with the ads anyway. No, you'll go to ad jail most likely. Yeah. Oh, there it is. The ads are running. I could stop for the duration of the ads, but I don't know if anyone's overly paying attention and needs me to stop for the ads. Hydrate while ads are happening. Okay. We will do a little hydration station. What? Rest your voice for a bit. Sure, will do. Only got like 40 odd seconds or so. Oh, 20 seconds left on ads. Is anything exciting happening on the server? I'm gonna go fight the Ender Dragon. Okay. I hope you have a wonderful time then. Okay, we are ad-free for another half an hour, so I will get back to the book. We are still on chapter 2 for the time being. I should be able to one-shot it. Jesus Christ, Yates. I mean, technically, very well done. And very good dedication. But like, damn, also. A lot of dedication. You know? Okay. I've been playing for about 3 days now. Have you been like sleeping in between this, eating, drinking, etc.? This is my only concern. It's sleep. Yeah, this is why I'm concerned. Okay, this would be why. It's not ideal. I mean, sleeping is good. Okay, very nice. Well done. Sleeping is useful. I will put all of the reading VODs up on YouTube as I do with every other VOD. Lol. So, if anyone wants to fall asleep with a YouTube video on, they can do that once the VODs are up. Or they can just actually pay attention and read the story with me. That's also fine. It's a good book, I'd say. I can take book requests as well. But obviously, we gotta get through this one now that we've started it. I can't remember how many pages it has. Playing. Nice. How many pages does this thing have? Okay. About 550 pages. Not too bad. Not too bad at all. It does look like it's going to fall apart. I think at one point it took a dip and we had to dry it out. It's done fairly okay since then. It was beautiful. I'm glad. We're still only 25 pages in, so there'll be much more. There'll be 2 streams, I think. Fair enough. I mean, we'll go to like midnight, 1 a.m.-ish today. So we'll see how long it ends up taking. 512 pages will probably take 2 streams. Okay. Alrighty. Maybe it'll be like 2. Alright. Maybe 1 stream will be fine. I feel like it's going to end up being 3, I think. I mean, for now it's beautiful. I don't know why you're nervous. Because it's scary. Like, you know? Like my English? It's fine. I can decipher it. So, ultimately, it's a-okay. Yeah, no. It's scary to, like, do a new thing, you know? I think it's fairly normal to be a little bit like, you know? Also, I've realized that the position in which I was reading in meant that the eyes, my eyes just constantly looked closed, despite the fact that they were definitely open because I need to see the words. But it just looked like this, like I was reading like this. Silly, but hey ho. You will definitely open. I don't know the book off by heart, so they kind of have to be opened. I could tell you the story, to be fair, off by heart, but not like the specific words on the page. So we've got to keep them open, at least for now. At some point also, I will get a book-related background. Wow. We had to use this one today because, funnily enough, I could not find a good one that wasn't AI. That also has to fit with the law of the room. And as some of you may know, the Order's library is underground, which means that I couldn't have anything that had a window in it. Every single like pre-existing one that I found that wasn't AI and that was either like free or cheap and not a commission for someone else, all of them had windows. So I was like, I'm a bit fucked here. Underground, just like the dungeon Media League I raided. Ooh. You'll have to show me all the loot when I eventually manage to get on. I have much to do tomorrow. We've got to fix more stuff on the model and add redeems back. I've had to remove redeems for today because you have to replace all of them. And I totally ran out of time after trying to get this woman working. And then obviously all the software for face tracking broke. So that was really good and enjoyable. And then it took me a while to find a book somehow, because the book that I'd originally planned to use for this, I had it ready, and then I tried it out, and it looked really silly. And I was like, oh, damn, I need to find a new book asset now. So we have this one. And it also looks a little bit silly, but I think for now it's fine, and it works well enough that I'm not going to change it. But hey, if I find more books, we will do a different book. Okay, I'm getting back to it now. We are on chapter 2, Secrets, page 24 overall. I'm not entirely sure how long I've been specifically reading for, but we are very, very slightly in. So I think we're going to be here for a while. Anyway, let's see. An hour later, they were taking everything out into the yard. Maggie shivered when she stepped out of the doors. It was a chilly morning after the night's rain, and the sun hung in the sky like a pale coin lost by someone high up in the clouds. They'd been living in the old farmhouse for just under a year. Maggie liked the view of the surrounding hills, the swallows' nests under the roof, the dried-up well that yawned darkly as if it went straight down to the earth's core. The house itself had always been too big and draughty for her liking, with all those empty rooms full of fat spiders, but the rent was low and Mo had enough space for his books and his workshop. There was a hen house outside, and the barn, which now housed their only caravan, would have been perfect for a couple of cows or a horse. Cows have to be milked, Maggie, Mo had said when she suggested keeping a couple. Very, very early in the morning, every day. Well, what about a horse? She had asked. Even Pickney Longstocking has a horse, and she doesn't have a stable. She'd have been happy with a few chickens or a goat, but they too had to be fed every day, and she and Mo went away too often for that. So Maggie had only the ginger cat who sometimes came visiting when it couldn't be bothered to compete with the dogs on the farm next door. The grumpy old farmer who lived there was their only neighbour. Sometimes his dog howled so pitifully that Maggie put her hands over her ears. It was 20 minutes by bike to the nearest village, where she went to school and where two of her friends lived, but Mo usually took her in the van because it was a lonely ride along a narrow road that wound past nothing but fields and dark trees. What on earth have you packed in here? Bricks? Asked Mo, as he carried Maggie's book box out of the house. You're the one who says books have to be heavy because the whole world's inside them, said Maggie. making him laugh for the first time that morning. The camper van, standing in the abandoned barn like a solid, multicolored animal, was more familiar to Maggie than any of the houses where she and Mo had lived. She never slept more deeply and soundly than in the bed he had tucked into for her. There was a table too, of course, a kitchen tucked in a corner and a bench to sit on. When you lifted the seat of the bench, there were travel guides, road maps, and well-worn paperbacks under it. Yes, Maggie was fond of the van, but this morning she hesitated to get in. When Mo finally went back to the house to lock the door, she suddenly felt that they would never come back here, that this journey was going to be different from any other, that they would drive further and further away in flight from something that had no name, or at least none that Mo was about to tell her. Very well, off we go south, was all he said as he got behind the steering wheel. And so they set off, without saying goodbye to anyone, on a morning that still seemed much too early and smelled of rain, but Dustfinger was waiting for them at the gate. Chapter 3. Going South. Dustfinger must have been waiting in the road beyond the wall. Maggie had picked her precarious way along the top of that wall hundreds of times, up to the rusty hinges of the gate and back again, eyes tightly closed so that she could get a clearer view of the tiger she'd imagined waiting in the bamboo at the foot of the wall, his eyes yellow as amber, or the foaming rapids to her right and her left. Only Dustfinger was there now, but no other sight could have made Maggie's heart beat faster. He appeared so suddenly that Mo almost ran him down. He wore only a sweater, and he was shivering with his arms folded over his chest. His coat was probably still damp from last night's rain, but his hair was dry now, a ruffled sandy mop above his scarred face. Mo swore under his breath, switched off the engine, and got out of the van. Smiling his strange smile, Dustfinger leaned back against the wall. "Where are you going in such a hurry, Silvertongue? Didn't we have a date?" he asked. "You stood me up like this once before, remember?" "You know why I'm in a hurry," replied Mo, "for the same reason as last time." He was still standing by the open door of the van, looking tense, as if he couldn't wait for Dustfinger to get out of the way. But Dustfinger pretended not to notice Mo's impatience. "And may I know where you're going?" he inquired. "It took me 4 years to find you last time, and if luck hadn't been on your side, Capricorn's men would have got you first." When he glanced at Maggie, she stared back icily. Mo was silent for a while. "Capricorn's in the north," he answered at last. "So we're going south. Or has he taken up residence somewhere else now?" Dustfinger looked down the road. Last night's rain shone in the potholes. No, he said. "No, he's still in the north. Or so I hear. And since you've obviously made up your mind to go on refusing him what he wants, I'd better go south myself as fast as I can. Heaven knows I don't want to be the one to give Capricorn's men the bad news. So if you'd give me a lift part of the way, I'm ready to leave." The 2 bags he picked up from where they stood by the wall looked as if they had been all around the world a dozen times. Apart from the bags, Dustfinger had nothing but his rucksack with him. Maggie compressed her lips. "No, Mo," she thought, "no, let's not take him." But she had only to look at her father to know that his answer would be different. "Oh, come on, Silvertongue," said Dustfinger. "What am I going to tell Capricorn's men if I fall into their hands?" He looked lost, standing there like a stray dog, and hard as Maggie tried to see something sinister about him, she couldn't, not in the pale morning light. All the same, she didn't want him to go with them. Her face showed that very clearly, but neither of the 2 men took any notice of her. "Believe me, I couldn't keep the fact that I've seen you from them for very long," Dustfinger continued. "And anyway," he hesitated before completing his sentence, "you still owe me, don't you?" Mo bowed his head. Maggie saw his hand closing more firmly around the open door of the van. "If you want to look at it like that," he said, "yes, I suppose I do still owe you." The relief was plain to see on Dustfinger's scarred face. He quickly hoisted his rucksack over his shoulders and came over to the van with his bags. "Wait a minute," cried Maggie, as Mo moved to help him. If he's coming with us, then I want to know why we're running away. Who is this man called Capricorn? Mo turned to her. Meggie, he began in the tone she knew only too well. Meggie, don't be so silly, it meant. Come along now, Meggie. She opened the van door and jumped out. Meggie, for heaven's sake, get back in. We have to leave. I'm not getting back in until you tell me. Mo came towards her, but Meggie slipped away and ran through the gate into the road. Why won't you tell me? She cried. The road was deserted, as if there was no other human beings in the world. A slight breeze had risen, caressing Meggie's face and rustling in the leaves of the lime tree that grew by the roadside. The sky was still wan and grey and refused to clear. I want to know what's going on, cried Meggie. I want to know why we had to get up at 5 o'clock and why I don't have to go to school. I want to know if we're ever coming back, and I want to know who this Capricorn is. When she spoke the name, Mo turned and looked around as if the man with the strange name, the man he and Dustfinger obviously feared so much, might step out of the empty barn next moment as suddenly as Dustfinger had emerged from behind the wall. But the yard was empty, and Meggie was too furious to feel frightened of someone who she knew nothing about him other than his name. You've always told me everything, she shouted at her father. Always. But Mo was still silent. Everyone has a few secrets, Meggie, he said at last. Now come along, do get in, we have to leave. Dustfinger looked first at Mo, then at Meggie, with an expression of incredulity on his face. You haven't told her? Meggie heard him ask in a low voice. Mo shook his head. But you have to tell her something. It's dangerous for her not to know. She's not a baby anymore. It's dangerous for her to know too, said Mo, and it wouldn't change anything. Meggie was still standing in the road. I heard all that, she cried. What's dangerous? I'm not getting in until you tell me. Mo still said nothing. Dustfinger looked at him, uncertain for a moment, then put down his bags. Very well, he said. Then I'll tell her about Capricorn myself. He came slowly towards Meggie, involuntarily stepped back. You met him once, said Dustfinger. It's a long time ago. You won't remember. You were so little. He held his hand at knee-height in the air. How can I explain what he's like? If you were to see a cat eating a young bird, I expect you'd cry, wouldn't you? Or try to help the bird? Capricorn would feed the bird to the cat on purpose just to watch it being torn apart, and the little creature's screeching and struggling would be as sweet as honey to him. Meggie took another step backwards, but Dustfinger kept advancing towards her. I don't suppose you'd get any fun from terrifying people until their knees were so weak they could hardly stand, he asked. Nothing gives Capricorn more pleasure, and I don't suppose you think you can just help yourself to anything you want, never mind what or where. Capricorn does. Unfortunately, your father has something Capricorn has set his heart on. Meggie glanced at Mo, but he just stood there looking at her. Capricorn can't bind books like your father, Dustfinger went on. In fact, he's not much good at anything except terrifying people, but he's a master of that art. It's his whole life. I doubt if he himself has any idea what it's like to be so paralyzed by fear that you feel small and insignificant, but he knows just to arouse that fear and spread it in people's homes and their beds, in their heads and their hearts. His men spread fear abroad like the Black Death. They push it under doors and through letterboxes. They paint it on walls and stable doors until it affects everything around it of its own accord, silent and stinking like a plague. Dustfinger was very close to Meggie now. Capricorn has many men, he said softly. Most have been with him since they were children. If Capricorn were to order one of them to cut off your nose or one of your ears, he'd do it without batting an eyelid. They like to dress in black like rooks. Only their leader wears a white shirt under his black jacket. And should you ever meet any of them, then make yourself small, very small, and hope they don't notice you. Understand? Meggie nodded. Her heart was pounding so hard that she could scarcely breathe. I can see why your father has never told you about Capricorn, said Dustfinger, looking at Mo. If I had children, I'd rather tell them about nice people too. I know the world's not just full of nice people. Meggie couldn't keep her voice shaking with anger, and more than a touch of fear. Oh yes, how do you know that? There it was again, that mysterious smile, sad and supercilious at the same time. Have you ever had anything to do with a real villain? I've read about them. Dustfinger laughed aloud. Yes, of course, that almost comes to the same thing, he said. His mockery hurt like stinging nettles. He bent down to Meggie and looked her in the face. All the same, I hope reading about them is as close you ever get, he said quietly. Mo was stowing Dustfinger's bags in the back of the van. I hope there's nothing in that might come flying around our heads, he said, as Dustfinger got in the back seat behind Meggie. With our trade, I wouldn't be surprised. Before Meggie could ask what trade that was, Dustfinger opened his rucksack and carefully lifted out an animal. It was blinking sleepily. Since we obviously have quite a long journey ahead of us, he told Mo, I'd like to introduce someone to your daughter. The creature was almost the size of a rabbit, but much thinner, with a bushy tail now draped over Dustfinger's chest like a fur collar. It dug its slender claws into his sleeve while inspecting Meggie with its gleaming, beady black eyes, and when it yawned, it bared teeth as sharp as needles. This is Gwyn, said Dustfinger. You can tickle him behind the ears if you like. He's very sleepy at the moment, so he won't bite. And does he usually? Asked Meggie. Yes, said Mo, getting back behind the wheel. If I were you, I'd keep my fingers away from that little brute. But Meggie couldn't keep her hands off any animal, however sharp its teeth. He's a marten or something like that, right? She asked. Something of that nature. Dustfinger put his hand in his trouser pocket and gave Gwyn a piece of dry bread. Meggie stroked his little head as he chewed, and her fingertips found something hard under the silky fur. Tiny horns growing beside his ears. Surprised, she took her hand away. Do martens have horns? Dustfinger winked at her and let Gwyn climb back into the rucksack. This one does, he said. Bewildered, Meggie watched him do up the straps. She felt as if she was still touching Gwyn's little horns. Mo, did you know that martens have horns? She asked. Oh, Dustfinger stuck them on that sharp-toothed little devil of his for his performances. What kind of performances? Meggie looked inquiringly, first at Mo, then at Dustfinger. But Mo just started the engine, and Dustfinger, who seemed to have come far, judging by his bags, took off his boots and stretched out on Mo's bed in the van with a deep sigh. Don't give me away, Silvertongue, he said before he closed his eyes. I have my own secrets, you know, and for those I need darkness. They must have driven 50 kilometers, and Meggie was still trying to work out what he could possibly have meant. Mo, she asked, when Dustfinger began snoring behind them, what does this Capricorn want from you? She lowered her voice before she spoke the name, as if that might remove some of the menace from it. A book, replied Mo, without taking his eyes off the road. A book? Then why not give it to him? I can't. I'll explain soon, but not now, all right? Meggie looked out of the van window. The world they were passing outside already looked unfamiliar. Unfamiliar houses, unfamiliar roads, unfamiliar fields. Even the trees in the sky looked unfamiliar. But Meggie was used to that. She had never really felt at home anywhere. Mo was her home. Mo and her books, and perhaps the camper van that carried them from one place to the next. This aunt we're going to see, she said as they drove through an endless tunnel. Does she have any children? No, said Mo, and I'm afraid she doesn't particularly like children either. But as I said, I'm sure you'll get on well with her. Meggie sighed. She could remember several aunts, and she hadn't got on particularly well with any of them. They were driving through mountains now. The slopes on both sides of the road rose ever more steeply, and there came a point where the houses looked not just unfamiliar, but really different. Meggie tried to pass the time by counting tunnels, but when the night swallowed them up and the darkness went on, she fell asleep. She dreamed of martens in black jackets, and a book in a brown paper cover. Chapter 4. A House Full of Books. Meggie woke up because it was so quiet. The regular sound of the engine that had lulled her to sleep had stopped. The driver's seat beside her was empty. It took Meggie a little while to remember why she wasn't in bed at home. Tiny dead flies were stuck to the windscreen, and the van was parked outside an iron gate. It looked alarming. with sharp ashen grey spikes, a gate made of spearheads just waiting to impale anyone who tried to clamber over. It reminded Maggie of one of her favourite stories, the tale of the selfish giant who wouldn't let children into his garden. This was exactly how she had imagined his garden gate. Mo was standing in the road with Dustfinger. Maggie got out and went over to them. On the right of the road, a densely wooded slope fell steeply to the bank of a wide lake. The hills on the other side rose from the lake like giants emerging from the depths. The water was almost black, and pale twilight, darkly reflected in the waves, was already spreading across the sky. The first lights were coming on in the houses on the bank, looking like glowworms or fallen stars. A lovely place, isn't it? Mo put his arm round Maggie's shoulders. I know you like stories about robbers. See that ruined castle? A notorious robber band once lived there. I must ask Eleanor about them. She knows everything about this lake. Maggie just nodded and rested her head against his shoulder. She was so tired that she felt quite dizzy, but for the first time since they had set off, Mo's face wasn't looking grim with anxiety. Where does she live, then? Asked Maggie, stifling a yawn. Not behind that spiky gate. Actually, yes, this is the entrance to her property. Not very inviting, is it? Mo laughed and led Maggie across the road. Eleanor is very proud of this gate. She had it specially made. It's copied from a picture in a book. A picture of the selfish giant's garden, murmured Maggie, peering through the intricately twining iron bars. The selfish giant, Mo laughed. No, I think it was another story, although that one would suit Eleanor pretty well. Tall hedges grew on both sides of the gate, their thorny branches hiding any view of what lay beyond. But even through the iron bars, Maggie could see nothing promising except for tall rhododendron bushes and a broad gravel drive that soon disappeared between them. Looks like you have rich relations, Dustfinger whispered in her ear. Yes, Eleanor is quite rich, said Mo, drawing Maggie away from the gate. But she'll probably end up poor as a church mouse because she spends so much money on books. I think she'd sell her soul to the devil without thinking twice if he offered her the right book for it. He pushed the heavy gate open with a single movement. What are you doing? Asked Maggie in alarm. We can't just drive in. But there was a notice beside the door, still clearly legible even if some of the letters were partly hidden by the leaves of the hedge. Private property. No one authorized entry. Maggie didn't think it sounded very inviting. Mo, however, only laughed. Don't worry, he said, opening the gate wider. The only thing Eleanor guards with a burglar alarm is her library. She couldn't care less who walks through this gate. She's not what you'd call a nervous woman, and she doesn't have many visitors anyway. What about dogs? Dustfinger peered anxiously into the strange garden. That gate suggests at least 3 ferocious dogs to me, big ones, the size of calves. But Mo just shook his head. Eleanor hates dogs, he said, going back to the van. Right, get in. Eleanor's grounds were more like a wood than a garden. Once they were through the gateway, the drive curved, as if taking a deep breath before going on up the slope, then lost itself among dark firs and chestnut trees which grew so close together that their branches made a tunnel. Maggie was just thinking it would never end when the trees suddenly receded, and the drive brought them to an open space covered with gravel and surrounded by carefully tended rosebuds. A grey estate car stood on the gravel in front of a house that was bigger than the school Maggie had been attending for the last year. It looks like we have ads running at the moment, so I will take a very speedy drinking break, and then we will continue up again in 1 minute and 18-ish seconds. I hope the people who are listening are enjoying the story so far. We haven't had too much drastically happen though. I'm suddenly getting about 5 bajillion notifications on my phone. Don't ask me why. I'm enjoying it. I'm glad it does get, obviously, very much more exciting, I swear. You know, a lot of stuff happens and all. I'm currently trying to find crystal hearts. I have no idea what this is, but I assume that it's very important in some way. There's just a very large bike outside the door. Hey-ho. I am going to run to the bathroom very quickly, and then I will return and we will pick up where we left off. So I'm just going to pop it onto the Be Right Back screen. Yo. We're all coming back at the same time. Okay. Well, I hope it's much less delayed. Welcome back. Thanks. Good to be back. Are we ready to begin again? I refresh the stream. Nice. Which is good. It's less delayed now. I am glad. I really wish that they would make it so that having no delay actually means you have no delay. I doubt that will ever actually be implemented. So, hey ho. What can you do? Okay. We will continue onwards. No delay equals there is delay, quite literally. But it's either this or it's even more delay. So the options aren't great, essentially. We do what we can. Okay. We will jump right back into it. We're on, I have no idea what chapter, 4. We're on chapter 4, page 39. Let's see. Okay. Maggie was just thinking it would never end when the trees suddenly receded and the drive brought them to an open space covered with gravel and surrounded by carefully tended rose beds. A grey estate car stood on the gravel in front of a house that was bigger than the school Maggie had been attending for the last year. She tried to count the windows, but soon gave up. It was a very beautiful house, but looked just as uninviting as the iron gate. Perhaps it was only the evening twilight that made the ochre yellow of the plaster look so dirty. And perhaps the green shutters were closed only because night was already falling over the surrounding mountains. Perhaps. But Maggie would have bet her last book they were seldom open even in the daytime. The dark wooden front door looked as forbidding as a tightly closed mouth, and Maggie involuntarily reached for Mo's hand as they approached it. Dustfinger followed warily, with his battered rucksack over his shoulder. Gwyn was probably still asleep inside it. When Mo and Maggie went up to the door, he kept a couple of steps behind them, looking uneasily at the closed shutters as if he suspected that the mistress of the house was watching them from one of the windows. There was a small barred window beside the front door, the only one not hidden behind green shutters. Below it was another notice. "If you intend to waste my time on trivia, you'd better go away now." Maggie cast Mo an anxious glance, but he only made an encouraging face at her and pressed the bell. Maggie heard it ringing inside the big house, but nothing happened for quite a while. A magpie fluttered out of one of the rhododendron bushes growing near the house, and a couple of fat sparrows pecked busily at invisible insects in the gravel, but that was all. Maggie was just throwing them the breadcrumbs she had found in her jacket pocket, left over from a picnic on some long-forgotten day, when the door suddenly opened. The woman who came out was older than Mo, quite a lot older, although Maggie could never be quite sure how old grown-ups were. Her face reminded Maggie of a bulldog, but perhaps that was more her ferocious expression than its features. She wore a mouse-grey sweater and an ash-grey skirt, with a pearl necklace round her short neck and felt slippers on her feet, the kind of slippers Maggie had once had to wear when she and Mo had visited an historic castle. Eleanor's hair was grey too. She had pinned it up, but strands were hanging down everywhere, as if she had done it impatiently and in a hurry. She didn't look as if she spent much time in front of a mirror. "Good heavens, Mortimer, what a surprise," she said, without wasting time on further greetings. "Where did you spring from?" Her voice sounded brusque, but her face couldn't entirely hide the fact that she was pleased to see Mo. "Hello, Eleanor," said Mo, putting his hand on Maggie's shoulder. "Do you remember Maggie? As you can see, she's grown up quite a bit now." Eleanor cast Maggie a brief, irritated glance. "Yes, so I see," she said. "It's only natural for children to grow, wouldn't you say? As far as I remember, it's been some years since I last set eyes on either you or your daughter. So to what do I owe the unexpected honour of your visit today? Are you finally going to take pity on my poor books?" "That's right," Mo nodded. "One of my library commissions has been postponed. You know how libraries are always short of money." Maggie looked at him uneasily. She hadn't realised he could lie quite so convincingly. "And because it was so sudden," Mo continued, "I couldn't find anywhere for Maggie to go, so I brought her with me. I know you don't like children, but Maggie won't leave jam on your books or tear up pages to wrap up dead frogs." Eleanor muttered something suspicious and scrutinized Maggie as if she thought her capable of any kind of disgraceful conduct, whatever her father might say. "When you last brought her, we could at least put her in a playpen," she remarked coldly. "I don't suppose that would do now." Once again she looked Maggie up and down as if she were being asked to admit a dangerous animal to her house. Maggie felt her anger make the blood rise to her face. She wanted to go home, or get back in the camper van and go somewhere else, anywhere, so long as she didn't have to stay with this horrible woman, whose cold pebble eyes were boring holes in her face. Eleanor's gaze moved from Maggie to Dustfinger, who was still standing in the background looking awkward. "And who's this?" she looked inquiringly at Mo. "Do I know him?" "This is Dustfinger, a friend of mine." Perhaps only Maggie noticed Mo's hesitation. "He wants to go on south, but maybe you could put him up for a night in one of your many rooms?" Eleanor folded her arms. Only on condition his name has nothing to do with the way he treats books, she said. And I'll have to put up with rather sparse accommodation in the attic because my library has grown quite a great deal over the last few years. Nearly all my guest bedrooms are full of books. How many books do you have? Asked Maggie. She had grown up among piles of books, but even she couldn't imagine there were books behind all the windows of this huge house. Eleanor inspected her again, this time with unconcealed contempt. How many? She repeated. Do you think I count them like buttons or peas? A very, very great many. There are probably more books in every single room of this house than you will ever read, and some of them are so valuable that I wouldn't hesitate to shoot you if you ever dared touch them. But as you're a clever girl, or so your father assures me, you wouldn't do that anyway, would you? Maggie didn't reply. Instead, she imagined standing on tiptoe and spitting 3 times into this old witch's face. However, Mo just laughed. You haven't changed, Eleanor, he remarked, your tongue as sharp as a paper knife. But I warn you, if you harm Maggie, I'll do the same to your beloved books. Eleanor's lips curled in a tiny smile. Well said, she answered, stepping aside. You obviously haven't changed either. Come in, I'll show you the books that need your help, and a few others as well. Oh, I feel like I'm not taking in enough air. Jesus Christ. Hee I'm going to take a water break for a very fast second. While I speak quite often, I think this much continuous chatter is taking a mini toll on my throat. Take as much of a break as you need. Thanks, Utes. It'll only be a small one. Don't worry. I also think talking more gently to ensure that I'm not going to wake up potential sleeping people is also conducive to getting less airflow. But hey, I will not change it either way, so there's that. Yeah, okay. We will begin again. Maggie had always thought Mo had a lot of books. She never thought so again, not after setting foot in Eleanor's house. There were no haphazard piles laying around as they did at home. Every book obviously had its place, but where other people have wallpaper, pictures, or just an empty wall, Eleanor had bookshelves. The shelves were white and went right up to the ceiling in the entrance hall, through which she had first led them. But in the next room and the corridor beyond it, the shelves were as black as the tiles on the floor. These books, announced Eleanor with a dismissive gesture as they passed the closely ranked spines, have accumulated over the years. They're not particularly valuable, mostly of mediocre quality, nothing out of the ordinary. Should certain fingers be unable to control themselves and take one off the shelf now and then, she added, casting a brief glance at Maggie, I don't suppose the consequences would be too serious, just as long as once those fingers have satisfied their curiosity, they put every book back in its right place again and don't leave any unappetizing bookmarks inside. Here, Eleanor turned to Mo. Believe it or not, she said, I actually found a dried-up slice of salami used as a bookmark in one of the last books I bought, a wonderful 19th century first edition. Maggie couldn't help giggling, which naturally earned her another stern look. It's nothing to laugh about, young lady, said Eleanor. Some of the most wonderful books ever printed were lost because some fool of a fishmonger tore out their pages to wrap his stinking fish. In the Middle Ages, thousands of books were destroyed when people cut up their bindings to make soles for shoes, or to heat steam baths with their paper. The thought of such incredible abominations, even if they had occurred centuries ago, made Eleanor gasp for air. Well, let's forget about that, she said, as I shall get overexcited. My blood pressure's much too high as it is. She had stopped in front of a door which had an anchor with a dolphin coiled around it and painted on the white wood. This is a famous printer's special sign, explained Eleanor, stroking the dolphin's pointed nose with one finger. Just the thing for a library door, eh? I know, said Maggie. Aldous Manutius. He lived in Venice and printed books the right size to fit into his customers' saddlebags. Really? Eleanor wrinkled her brow, intrigued. I didn't know that. In any case, I am the fortunate owner of a book that he printed with his own hands in the year 1503. You mean it's from his workshop? Maggie corrected her. Of course, that's what I mean. Eleanor cleared her throat and gave Mo a reproachful glance, as if it could only be his fault that his daughter was precocious enough to know such things. Then she put her hand on the door handle. No child, she said, as she pressed the handle down with almost solemn reverence, has ever before passed through this door. But as I assume your father has taught you a certain respect for books, I'll make an exception today. However, only on condition you keep at least 3 paces away from the shelves. Is that agreed? For a moment, Maggie felt like saying no, it wasn't. She would have loved to surprise Eleanor by showing contempt for her precious books, but she couldn't do it. Her curiosity was too much for her. She felt almost as if she could hear the books whispering on the other side of the half-open door. They were promising her 1,000 unknown stories, 1,000 doors into worlds she had never seen before. The temptation was stronger than Maggie's pride. Agreed, she murmured, clasping her arms behind her back. 3 paces. Her fingers were itching with desire. Sensible child, said Eleanor, so condescendingly that Maggie almost went back on her decision. But then they entered Eleanor's Holy of Holies. You've had the place renovated, Maggie heard Mo say. He added something else, but she wasn't listening anymore. She was just staring at the books. The shelves on which they stood smelled of freshly sawn wood. They went all the way up to a sky-blue ceiling with tiny lights in it, hanging there like stars. Narrow wooden step ladders on casters stood by the shelves, ready to help any reader up to the top shelves. There were reading desks with books lying open on them, held in place by brass chains that shone like gold. There were glass display cases containing books with pages stained by age, but showing the most wonderful pictures. Maggie couldn't resist moving closer. 1 step forward, a quick glance at Eleanor, who luckily had her back turned, and she was right beside the display case. She bent lower and lower over the glass until her nose was touching it. Prickly leaves twined around pale brown letters. A tiny red dragon's head was spitting out flowers over the stained paper. Riders on white horses looked at Maggie as if scarcely a day had passed since someone painted them with tiny marten hair brushes. A man and woman stood beside them, perhaps a bridal couple. The man with a bright red hat was looking angrily at them. You call that 3 paces? Maggie spun round in alarm, but Eleanor didn't seem too angry. Yes, the art of illumination, she said. Once only rich people could read, so the pictures painted round the letters were to help the poor to understand the stories too. Of course, no one planned to give them pleasure. The poor were put into the world to work, not to have a nice time or look at pretty pictures. That kind of thing was only for the rich. No, the idea was to instruct the poor. Usually these stories came from the Bible, and everyone knew them anyway. The books were put in churches, and a page was turned every day to show a new picture. What about this book? Asked Maggie. I shouldn't think this one was ever in a church, replied Eleanor. More likely it was made for a very rich man to enjoy. It's almost 600 years old. There was no missing the pride in her voice. People have committed murder for such a book. Luckily, I only had to buy it. As she spoke these last words, she turned abruptly and looked at Dustfinger, who had followed them into the library, soundless as a prowling cat. For a moment, Maggie thought Eleanor would send him back into the corridor, but Dustfinger stood in front of the shelves, looking so impressed, with his hands behind his back, that he gave her no reason to turn him out, so she just cast him a final distrustful glance and turned back to Mo. He was standing at one of the reading desks with a book in his hand. Its spine hung on only by a couple of threads. He held it very carefully, like a bird with a broken wing. Well, asked Eleanor anxiously, can you save it? I know it's in terrible shape, and I'm afraid the others aren't in a much better way, but... Oh, that can all be put right. Mo put the book down and inspected another. But I think it will take me at least 2 weeks, if I don't have to get a hold of more materials, which could mean I need more time. Will you put up with us that long? Of course, Eleanor nodded, but Maggie noticed the glance she cast at Dustfinger. He was still standing beside the shelves near the door and seemed entirely absorbed in looking at the books, but Maggie sensed that she had missed none of what was said behind his back. Jesus. I can specifically feel my voice going, which is new. It's a new feeling. I wonder if when people record books for audiobooks, I wonder if they like read for an hour and then take a break and then read again like the next day and start recording again, and then they just splice it together. I'm gonna get off Minecraft for today. I've been playing since 3. Yeah, I think probably wise. Probably wise. I expect you've made excellent progress though. They probably do record it. Yeah, I expect so. I expect they do an amount a day. Hello, Samu. Welcome in. How's it going? You have caught us on a book break because I can feel my throat start to die. Did make a lot of progress? Very nice. I am glad. Really good. What about you? Doing swell, thank you. How many pages are we in? We're at about 46 pages. I think I'll attempt to get to 100, and then we will maybe finish up the day when we get to 100, but I don't know yet, as I'm not entirely sure how long it's going to take. Came from a concert directly to me. Nice. How exciting. Which concert did you go to? Who did you go to listen to? Someone good, I hope. Crow? I do not think I have heard of them, but were they good? Did you enjoy it? Mostly German songs. This is probably why I have not heard of them. It was really good. I'm glad. This is ideal. Did buy a pulley? What's a pulley? Was expensive. Is it useful? Pullover. A pullover. Indeed, this makes more sense. Haha. Yeah, pullovers from concerts are always so expensive. It's like, please, just make it a touch cheaper for me. Understand, I'm broke enough from going to the concert. Let me have this for less. Unfortunately, though, they never heed this advice of mine and always make it expensive. What can you do? It is what it is. Okay. We will attempt to hit page 100 today. It was £90? My god, that is very, very expensive. I mean, I fucking hope it's as soft as a sheep or something. Holy shit, because that's insane. My next focus is my farm and then the best armor set. Fair enough. Fair enough. Looks crazy good though. Maybe you'll have to send us the design over into the disc so we can see the beauty of it all. If you're interested, I can send a pic in DC later. Took the words right out of my mouth. Go for it. Would love to see the little design. I want up-close visuals of the design, okay? I wish to stay longer, but I might have to go. That is a-okay. I mean, if you want to know the story, yeah, you can rewatch the VOD. Don't go. It's rough out here. If you gotta scoot, then you gotta scoot. The full story will also obviously be up on the YouTubes, which is linked in the disc. I lie, it's linked to my card, which is everywhere. So, the YouTubes is where it will be. Indeed. Do well. I think we will begin again. How close are we to an ad? Okay. We're only about 2 minutes away from an ad. So what I'll do is I'll run an ad now, and then we can keep reading after the ad, and I will rest my voice for about 1.5 minutes long. Okay. Have a good rest, everyone. Before I go, I do want to know when you'll play Luca's server. Hopefully. Thank you for the hydrate. I will hydrate in a second. Hopefully I'll end up on Alika's server tomorrow at some point. I have currently got every intention of cleaning my apartment tomorrow because it really needs it. So as long as that doesn't take too long, I will do some Minecraft before the Valo Sunday. Hee haha. We will pray it doesn't take too long. If you do have time, I'll be there. I'll see if I can get it done in a reasonable amount of time instead of taking a year. Currently no promises, but I'll do my best. Alrighty. Let's run this ad, and then I will get back to reading afterwards. I'm gonna go now, don't stall too much. I'm not stalling that much. Also, see you later, Utes. Thanks for being around. I'm running the ad now. I'm hydrating. How long have I been muted for? Balls. Hey, Char. Fucking double balls. Logically, when would I have muted? I had to get Charman to double check if it was me. No, not you. Me. I'm trying to figure out when I would have muted. Did I cough? Ooh. I think I muted for the ads so I could drink, which means we haven't gone too far into the book. So this is fine. I think we need to go back about 2 pages. We're back in business, people. Do not worry. We have only missed about a page. So this is fine. Everything is okay. I will begin again. Unmuted. Thank you. Yeah. We are at chapter 4, page 47. I said a whole bunch of other stuff while I was muted, but, you know, hey-ho, it's probably not overly important. So we're just going to keep rolling. Let us begin again, then. There were no books in Eleanor's kitchen, not one, but they ate an excellent supper there at a wooden table that came, so Eleanor assured them, from the scriptorium of an Italian monastery. Maggie doubted it. As far as she knew, the monks had worked at desks with sloping tops in the scriptoria of their monasteries. But she kept this information to herself. Instead, she took another slice of bread and was just wondering how nice the cheese standing on the supposed scriptorium table would be when she noticed Mo whispering something to Eleanor. Since Eleanor's eyes widened greedily, Maggie concluded that they could only be discussing a book, and she immediately thought of brown paper, a pale green linen binding, and the anger in Mo's voice. Beside her, Dustfinger surreptitiously slipped a slice of ham into his rucksack for Gwyn's supper. Maggie saw a round nose emerge from the rucksack, snuffling in the hope of more delicacies. Dustfinger smiled at Maggie when he noticed her looking at him, and gave Gwyn some more ham. He didn't seem to find anything odd about Mo and Eleanor's whispering, but Maggie was sure the two of them were planning something secret. After a short time, Mo rose from the table and went out. Maggie asked Eleanor where the bathroom was, and followed him. It was a strange feeling to be spying on Mo. She couldn't remember ever doing it before, except last night, when Dustfinger had arrived. And the time when she had tried to find out whether Mo was Father Christmas. She was ashamed of stealing after him like this, but it was his own fault. Why was he hiding the book from her? And now he might be going to give it to this Eleanor, a book Maggie wasn't allowed to see. Ever since Mo had hurriedly hidden it behind his back, Maggie hadn't been able to get it out of her head. She had even looked for it in Mo's bag before he loaded his things into the van, but she couldn't find it. She just had to see it before it disappeared, maybe into one of Eleanor's display cases. She had to know why it meant so much to Mo that, for its sake, he would drag her all the way here. He looked round once more in the entrance hall before leaving the house, but Maggie ducked down behind a chest just in time. The chest smelled of mothballs and lavender. She decided to stay in hiding there until Mo came back. He'd be sure to see her if she went outdoors. Time passed painfully slowly, as it always does when you're waiting for something with your heart thumping hard. The books in the white box cases seemed to be watching Maggie, but they said nothing to her, as if they sensed that there was only one book Maggie could think about just now. Finally, Mo came back carrying a package wrapped in brown paper. Perhaps he's just going to hide it here, thought Maggie. Where could you hide a book better than among 10,000 others? Yes, Mo was going to leave it here, and then they'd drive home again. But I would like to see it, thought Maggie, just once before it's put on one of those shelves I'm supposed to stay 3 pieces away from. Mo passed her so close that she could have touched him, but he didn't notice her. Maggie, don't look at me like that, he sometimes told her. You're reading my thoughts again. Now he looked anxious, as if he wasn't quite sure he was doing the right thing. Maggie counted slowly to 3 before following her father. But a couple of times Mo stopped so suddenly that Maggie almost ran into him. He didn't return to the kitchen, but went straight to the library. Without looking back once, he opened the door with the Venetian printer's mark on it and closed it quietly behind him. So there stood Meggie, among all the silent books, wondering whether to follow him and ask him to show her the book. Would he be very angry? She was just about to summon up all her courage and go after him, when she heard footsteps, rapid, firm footsteps, quick and impatient. That could only be Eleanor. Now what? Meggie opened the nearest door and slipped through it. A four-poster bed, a wardrobe, silver-framed photographs, a pile of books on the bedside table, a catalogue lying open on the rug, its pages full of pictures of old books. She was in Eleanor's bedroom. Heart thudding, she listened for noises outside. She could hear Eleanor's energetic footsteps and then the sound of the library door closing for the second time. Cautiously, she slipped out into the corridor again. She was still standing outside the library, undecided, when she felt a hand suddenly laid on her shoulder from behind. Another hand stifled her cry of alarm. "It's only me," breathed Dustfinger into her ear. "Keep quiet or we're both in trouble, understand?" Meggie nodded, and Dustfinger slowly took his hand away from her mouth. "Your father's going to give the old witch that book, right?" he whispered. "Has he taken it out of the van? Tell me, he did have it with him, didn't he?" Meggie pushed him away. "I don't know," she snapped. "Anyway, what business is it of yours?" "What business is it of mine?" Dustfinger laughed quietly. "Well, perhaps I'll tell you sometime, but just now all I want to know is whether you've seen it." Meggie shook her head. She didn't know herself why she was lying to Dustfinger, perhaps because he had pressed his hand over her mouth a little too hard. "Meggie, listen to me." Dustfinger looked at her intently. His scars were like pale lines that someone had drawn on his cheeks, two slightly curved marks on the left cheek, a third and longer line on the right cheek running from ear to nostril. "Capricorn will kill your father if he doesn't get that book," hissed Dustfinger. "Kill him, do you understand? Didn't I tell you what he's like? He wants the book, and he always gets what he wants. It's ridiculous to believe it will be safe from him here." "Mo doesn't think so." Dustfinger straightened up and stared at the library door. "Yes, I know," he murmured. "That's the trouble." "And so," he said, putting both hands on Maggie's shoulders and propelling her towards the closed door, "so now you're going to go in there, the picture of innocence, and find out what the pair of them are planning to do with that book, okay?" Meggie was about to protest, but before she knew it, Dustfinger had opened the door and pushed her into the library. I'm grabbing a drink. Hold on. Ah. Yay. Okay. Chapter 5. Only a Picture. They had unwrapped the book. Meggie saw the brown paper lying on a chair. Neither of them noticed that she had come in. Eleanor was bending over one of the reading desks with Mo beside her. They both had their backs to the door. "Amazing. I thought there wasn't a single copy left," Eleanor was saying. "There are strange stories about this book going around. A second-hand dealer from whom I buy quite often told me that 3 copies were stolen from him a few years ago, all on the same day, too. And I've heard much the same story from 2 other booksellers." "Really? Yes, very strange," said Mo. But Meggie knew his voice well enough to know that he was only pretending to be surprised. "Well, anyway, even if this wasn't a rare book, it means a lot to me, and I'd like to be sure it's in safe hands for a while, just till I come back for it." "All books are in safe hands with me," replied Eleanor, sounding cross. "You know that. They're my children, my inky children, and I look after them well. I keep the sunlight away from their pages, I dust them and protect them from hungry bookworms and grubby human fingers. This one shall have a place of honour, and no one will see it until you want it back. I don't really welcome visitors to my library. They just leave fingerprints and stray hairs in my poor books. Anyway, as you know, I have a very expensive burglar alarm system." "Yes, that's extremely reassuring." Mo's voice sounded relieved. "Thank you, Eleanor. I really am most grateful. And if anyone comes knocking at your door in the near future asking about the book, please will you make out you've never heard of it, all right? Of course, I'd do anything for a good bookbinder. And anyway, you're my niece's husband. I really do miss her sometimes, you know. I expect you feel the same. Your daughter seems to be getting on all right without her, though. She hardly remembers her mother, said Mo quietly. Well, that's a blessing, wouldn't you say? Sometimes it's a good thing we don't remember things half as well as books do. But for them, we probably wouldn't know anything for very long. It would all be forgotten. The Trojan War, Columbus, Marco Polo, Shakespeare, all the amazing kings and gods of the past. Eleanor turned round and froze. Did I fail to hear you knock? She asked, staring so angrily that Maggie had to summon up all her courage not to turn round and slip quickly back out into the passage. How long have you been there, Maggie? Asked Mo. Maggie stuck her chin out. She can see it, but you hide it away from me, she said. Attack, she knew, is the best form of defense. You never hit any book from me before. What's so special about this one? Will I go blind if I read it? Will I bite my fingers off? What terrible secrets are there in it that I mustn't know? I have my reasons for not showing it to you, replied Mo. He looked very pale. Without another word, he went over and tried to lead her to the door, but Maggie tore herself away. Pig-headed, isn't she? Remarked Eleanor. It almost makes me like her. Her mother was just the same, I remember. Come here. She stepped aside and beckoned Maggie over. Look, you can see there's nothing very exciting about this book, at least not to you. But see for yourself. We're always most likely to believe the evidence of our own eyes. Or doesn't your father agree? She cast Mo an inquiring glance. Mo hesitated, then resigned himself and nodded. The book was lying open on the reading desk. It didn't seem particularly old. Maggie knew what really old books looked like. She had seen books in Mo's workshop with their pages spotted like leopard skin and almost as yellow. She remembered one with a binding that had been attacked by woodworm. The traces of their jaws had looked like tiny bullet holes, and Mo had got out his book block, carefully fixed the pages back together, and then, as he put it, gave them a new dress. Such a dress could be made of leather or linen. It might be plain, or Mo might imprint a pattern on it with his tiny decorative stamps. This book was bound in linen, silvery green like willow leaves. The edges of the pages were slightly roughened, and the paper was still so pale that every letter stood out clear and black. A narrow red bookmark lay between the open pages. The right-hand page had an illustration on it, showing women in magnificent dresses, a fire-eater, acrobats, and a man who looked like a king. Maggie turned the pages. There weren't many illustrations, but the first letter of each chapter was itself a little decorative picture. Animals sat on some of these initial letters, plants twisted round others. One F burned bright as fire. The flames looked so real that Maggie touched them with one finger to make sure they weren't hot. The next chapter began with an N. An animal with a furry tail sat perched in the angle between the second and third strokes of the letter. No one saw him slip out of town, read Maggie. But before she could get any further with the story, Eleanor closed the book in her face. I think that'll do, she said, tucking it under her arm. Your father's asked me to put this book somewhere safe for him, and so I will. Mo took Maggie's hand again, and this time she followed him. Please forget that book, Maggie, he whispered. It's an unlucky story. I'll get you 100 others. Maggie just nodded. Before Mo closed the door behind them, she caught a last glance of Eleanor standing there, looking at the book lovingly, the way Mo sometimes looked at her when he put her to bed in the evening. Then the door was closed. Where will she put it? Asked Maggie as she followed Mo down the corridor. Oh, she has some very good hiding places for such things, replied Mo evasively, but they're secret, as hiding places ought to be. Suppose I show you your room now? He was trying to sound carefree and not succeeding particularly well. It's like a room in an expensive hotel. No, much better. Sounds good, murmured Maggie, looking round, but there was no sign of Dustfinger. Where had he gone? She had to ask him something at once. That was all she could think about. While Mo was showing her the room and telling her that everything was all right now, he just had to do his bookbinding work, then they'd go home. Maggie nodded and pretended to be listening, but her mind was full of the question she wanted to ask Dustfinger. It burned on her lips so fiercely that she was surprised Mo didn't see it there. When Mo left her to go and fetch their bags from the camper van, Maggie went into the kitchen, but Dustfinger wasn't there either. She even looked for him in Eleanor's bedroom, but however many doors in the huge house she opened, there was no sign of him. Finally, she was too tired to go on searching. Mo had gone to bed long ago, and Eleanor had disappeared into her own bedroom, so Maggie went to her room and lay down in the big bed. She felt very lost in it, like a dwarf, as if she had shrunk. Like Alice in Wonderland, she thought, patting the flowered bed linen. Otherwise, she liked the room. It was full of books and pictures, and there was even a fireplace, although it looked as if no one had used it for at least 100 years. Maggie swung her legs out of bed again and went over to the window. Outside, night had fallen long ago, and when she pushed the window shutters open, a cool breeze blew on her face. The only thing she could make out in the dark was the gravel forecourt in front of the house. A lamp cast pale light over the grey and white pebbles. Mo's stripy van stood beside Eleanor's grey estate car like a zebra lost in a horse's stable. Maggie thought of the house they had left in such a hurry, and her room there, and school where her desk would have been empty today. She wasn't sure whether she felt homesick or not. She left the shutters open when she went back to bed. Mo had put her book box beside her. Warily she took a book out and tried to make herself a nice nest in its familiar words, but it was no good. Again and again the thought of that other book blurred the words. Again and again Maggie saw the big initial letters before her, large, colourful letters surrounded by figures whose stories she didn't know because the book hadn't had time to tell it to her. I must find Dustfinger, she thought sleepily. He must be here somewhere. But then the book slipped from her fingers and she fell asleep. The sun woke her next morning. The air was still cool from the night before, but the sky was cloudless, and when Maggie leaned out of the window she could see the lake gleaming in the distance beyond the branches of the trees. The room Eleanor had given her was on the first floor. Mo was sleeping only 2 doors further along, but Dustfinger had to make do with an attic room. Maggie had seen it when she was looking for him yesterday. It held nothing but a narrow bed surrounded by crates of books towering up to the rafters. Mo was already sitting at the table with Eleanor when Maggie came down to the kitchen for breakfast, but Dustfinger wasn't there. "Oh, he's had breakfast already," said Eleanor sharply when Maggie asked about him, along with some animal like a Pomeranian dog. It was sitting on the table and it spat at me when I came into the kitchen. I wasn't expecting anything like that. I made it clear to your peculiar friend that flies are the only animals I'll allow anywhere near my kitchen table, and so he took the fairy creature outside. "What do you want him for?" asked Mo. "Oh, nothing special. I just wanted to ask him something," said Maggie. She hastily ate half a slice of bread, drank some of the horribly bitter cocoa Eleanor had made, and went out. She found Dustfinger behind the house, standing on a lawn of short, rather rough grass where a solitary deck chair stood next to a plaster angel. There was no sign of Gwyn. A few birds were quarrelling among the red flowers of the rhododendron, and there stood Dustfinger, looking lost to the world and juggling. Maggie tried to count the coloured balls, 4, 6, 8. He plucked them out of the air so swiftly that it made her dizzy to watch him. He stood on one leg to catch them, casually, as if he didn't even have to look. Only when he spotted Maggie did a ball escape his fingers and roll at her feet. Maggie picked it up and threw it back. "Where did you learn to do that?" she asked. "It looked, well, wonderful." Dustfinger made her a mocking bow. There was that strange smile of his again. "It's how I earn my living," he said, "with the juggling and a few other things." "How can you earn a living that way?" "At markets and fairs, at children's birthday parties. Did you ever go to one of those fairs where people pretend they're still living in medieval times?" Maggie nodded. Yes, she had once been to a fair like that with Mo. There had been wonderful things there, so strange that they might have come from another world, not just another time. Mo had bought her a box decorated with brightly coloured stones and a little fish made of shiny green and gold metal, with its mouth wide open and a jingle in its hollow body that rang like a little bell when you shook it. The air had smelled of freshly baked bread, smoke and damp clothes, and Maggie had watched a smith making a sword, and had hidden behind Mo's back from a woman in witch's costume. Dustfinger picked up his juggling balls and put them back in his bag, which was standing open on the grass behind him. Maggie went over to it and looked inside. She saw some bottles, some white cotton wool, and a carton of milk. Before she could see any more, Dustfinger closed the bag. Sorry, trade secrets, he said. Your father's given the book to this Eleanor, hasn't he? Maggie shrugged her shoulders. It's all right, you can tell me. I know anyway. I was listening. He's mad to leave it here, but what can I do? Dustfinger sat down next on the deck chair. His rucksack was on the grass next to him with a bushy tail spilling out of it. I saw Gwyn, said Maggie. Did you? Dustfinger leaned back, closing his eyes. His hair looked even paler in the sunlight. So did I. He's in the rucksack. It's the time of day when he sleeps. I mean, I saw him in the book. Maggie didn't take her eyes off Dustfinger's face as she said this, but it didn't move a muscle. His thoughts couldn't be read on his brow in the same way as she could read Mo's. Dustfinger's face was a closed book, and Maggie had the feeling that if anyone tried reading it, he would rap their knuckles. He was sitting on a letter, she went on a capital N. I saw his horns. Really, Dustfinger didn't even open his eyes. And you know which of her thousands of shells that book-mad woman put it on? Maggie ignored his question. Why does Gwyn look like the animal in the book? She asked. Did you really stick those horns on him? Dustfinger opened his eyes and blinked up at the sun. Did I? He inquired, looking over at the sky. A few clouds were drifting over Eleanor's house. The sun disappeared behind one of them, and its shadow fell across the green grass like an ugly mark. Does your father often read aloud to you, Maggie? Asked Dustfinger. Maggie looked at him suspiciously. Then she knelt down beside the rucksack and stroked Gwyn's silky tail. No, she said, but he taught me to read when I was 5. Ask him why he doesn't read aloud to you, said Dustfinger. And don't you let him put you off with excuses. What do you mean? Maggie straightened up, feeling cross. He doesn't like reading aloud, that's all. Dustfinger smiled. Leaning out of the deck chair, he put one hand into the rucksack. Ah, that feels like a nice full stomach, he commented. I think Gwyn had good hunting last night. I hope he's not been plundering a nest again. Perhaps it's just Eleanor's rolls and eggs. Gwyn's tail twitched back and forth, almost like a cat's. Maggie looked at the rucksack with distaste. She was glad she couldn't see Gwyn's muzzle. There might still be blood on it. Dustfinger leaned back in Eleanor's deck chair. Shall I give you a performance this evening? Show you what the bottles, the cotton wool, and all the other mysterious things in my bag are for? He asked without looking at her. It has to be dark for that, pitch dark. Are you scared to be out of doors in the middle of the night? Of course not, said Maggie, offended, although really she was not at all happy to be out in the dark. But first, tell me why you stuck those horns on Gwyn, and tell me what you know about the book. Dustfinger folded his arms behind his head. Oh, I know a lot about that book, he said, and perhaps I'll tell you sometime. But first the two of us have a date. Here at 11 o'clock tonight, okay? Maggie looked up at a blackbird singing its heart out on Eleanor's rooftop. Okay, she said, 11 o'clock tonight. Then she went back to the house. Eleanor had suggested that Mo set up his workshop next door to the library. There was a little room where she kept her collection of old books about animals and plants, but there seemed to be no kind of book that Eleanor didn't collect. She kept this collection on shelves of pale honey-coloured wood. On some of the shelves, it is 11? It is currently 11, yes. We are reading until we hit page 100 today. We are at page 60, so we've got a bit of a ways to go, actually. I think if it gets too late, like 1-ish though, and I haven't hit 100 by then, we will have to stop. But for now, we keep going past 11. No, I meant you said 11? Yeah, in the book. It stands in the book. Indeed. Maggie and Dustfinger have a meeting tonight at 11 o'clock. It just so happens to also be 11 o'clock right now for me. What do you mean, Nagi? What? I'm so confused. What's happening? What have I missed? Hydrate. Yes, ma'am. We will do a quick hydration and we will start another ad, okay? Okay, because it's going to go off in a minute anyway, so it feels like a good time to run one. Okay. Keep reading, the ADHD is kicking in. We're going to have an ad in a second and I'm being forced to hydrate. So we'll run the ad. I'll hydrate. In a minute and a half or so, we will continue reading. Okay? Okay. This is all I can offer you. We'll have more reading streams though. And also, all of the VODs will go up on YouTube. So if anyone's missed any part of the story and they want to catch up, all they have to do is pop over there. Alrighty, I'm running the ad. For those of you who can still hear me, we are also hydrating. I don't think World's Tiniest Violin works on this page. My apologies. I will refund this for you. There you go. Hopefully tomorrow, and by the next reading stream, I will have everything set up on this page to work. But currently, not a lot is set up, so we have had to turn off a few things for today's stream. I just enjoy the sound of the violin. It is a fun one. If I could make violin sounds for you now, I would, but unfortunately I don't think I can. I'm just going to fill up my water bottle and then we will get back to reading because the ads end in about 5 seconds. Back to Valo now. Have fun, girly pop. Tell your Valo people to come to my stream. Haha. I probably need it. Oh. I almost tripped on the chair coming back, but it is okay. Because we've managed to survive. My fingers are glitching. This is a very fun way to say that you're having difficulty typing. Very fun. Odd, but fun. Okay. We are... I have no idea. My fingers always glitch in that case. All the time your fingers glitch. This has been a very long chapter. We're on chapter 5. Page 60. And we're going back to it. Okay. Eleanor had suggested that Mo set up his workshop next door to the library. There was a little room where she kept her collection of old books about animals and plants, but there seemed to be no kind of book that Eleanor didn't collect. She kept this collection on shelves of pale honey-coloured wood. On some of the shelves the books were propping up glass display cases of beetles. Ah! Hey, Wolf, it has been some time. Welcome back. We're finally doing a reading stream. Not Dracula, unfortunately. We've got Inkheart today. Where have you been off to? It's been like... I don't even know how long it's been. Jeez. You can't tell people to shush, Nagi. Plus, it's been ages since we've seen Wolf. I want to know the details. Maybe he's been sailing the world and Sea of Thieves. I like the update, you know? Why are you shushing me now? Saving the world unlikely? Hey, we never know what's been happening. It's been rough. Are you doing okay? Should I be concerned? Do you need anything? Drinking alcohol, most likely. We don't know this. We don't know this at all. Anything could be happening, you know? I'm fine, but apparently everyone around me is getting fed up. Huh? What's been happening? Really? I do this. Ah, fucked up. Okay. Not ideal. I am glad that you're fine though. Even if everything else is not doing so well. Not ideal. Indeed, at least Wolf is fine. She's good. She's very good. Uncle dies, friend died, other uncles hit 1 foot already in the grave. Cousin of Jesus Christ. Yeah, that is a very, very long list to go through. I think it's entirely fair to be tired at this point. Not good at all. I'm very sorry this has all happened, Wolf. What are we reading? We are reading Inkheart. It's a favorite from my childhood. Do you want me to read the blurb? Hit me. So, here's the blurb, okay? Maggie loves books. So does her father Mo, a bookbinder, although he's never read aloud to her since her mother mysteriously disappeared. They live quietly until the night a stranger knocks at their door. He has come with a warning that forces Mo to reveal an extraordinary secret. A storytelling secret that will change their lives forever. Recommend a chill and stream, listen to the stream so you can relax. Yeah. Relaxing is good. We do this here. Tintin Hurts from a German author. Oh. It says Cornelia Funk. Yeah, I believe that she's German. Yes. Obviously, I've got the English version of the book because I don't know any German. But hey ho. At some point, when I finish the first book, I think I will also force everyone to watch the movie adaptation with me because I quite enjoy the movie adaptation. Good choice. Thanks. I've got the whole series. And the last one is very fancy and bound quite nicely, if I do say so myself. It's my only hardback of the series. The name screams Germany. Yeah, it does. But hey ho. Obviously, Germany produces some good books. Can't fault them for that. We're on page 60-ish. I shall be content and listen. Okay. That is fine with me, obviously. Yeah. We're attempting to get up to page 100 today, depending on the time-wise. Our next ad break / reading break will be in about 22 minutes. Thereabouts. Alrighty. I will get right back to it. Okay. She kept this collection on shelves of pale honey-coloured wood. Check flashes with your... I don't know what those words mean, but I'm going to continue reading. On some of the shelves, the books were propping up glass display cases of beetles pinned to cardboard, which only made Maggie dislike Eleanor all the more. By the only window was a handsome table with turned legs, but it was barely half as long as the one Mo had in his workshop at home. Perhaps that was why he was swearing quietly to himself when Maggie put her head around the door. "Look at this table," he said. You could sort a stamp collection on it, but not bind books. This whole room is too small. Where am I going to put my press and my tools? Last time I worked up in the attics, but now they're filled with crates of books too." Maggie stroked the spines of the books crammed close together on the shelves. "Just tell her you need a bigger table." Carefully, she took a book off the shelf. It contained pictures of the strangest of insects. Beetles with horns, beetles with I have no idea what this word is. Proboscis? We're gonna ignore it and move on. One even had a proper nose. Maggie passed her forefinger over the pastel-coloured pictures. "Mo, why haven't you ever read aloud to me?" The father turned round so abruptly that the book almost fell from her hand. "Why do you ask me that? You've been talking to Dustfinger, haven't you? What did he tell you?" "Nothing. Nothing at all." Maggie herself didn't know why she was lying. She put the beetle book back in its place. It felt almost as if someone was spinning a very fine web around the two of them, a web of secrets and lies closing in on them all the time. "I think it's a good question, though," she said as she took out another book. It was called Masters of Disguise. The creatures in it looked like live twigs or dry leaves. Mo turned his back to her again. He began laying out his implements on the table, even though it was too small. His folding tool on the left, then the round-headed hammer he used to tap the spines of books into place. The sharp paper knife. He usually whistled under his breath as he worked, but now he was perfectly quiet. Maggie sensed that his thoughts were far away. But where? Finally, he sat on the side of the table and looked at her. "I just don't like reading aloud," he said, as if it were the most uninteresting subject in the world. "You know I don't, that's all." "But why not? I mean, you make up stories. You tell wonderful stories. You can do all the voices and make it exciting and then funny." Mo crossed his arms over his chest as if hiding behind them. "You could read me Tom Sawyer," suggested Maggie, "or How the Rhinoceros Got His Skin." That was one of Mo's favourite stories. When she was smaller, they sometimes played at having crumbs in their clothes, like the crumbs in the rhino's skin. "Yes, an excellent story," murmured Mo, turning his back to her again. He picked up the folder in which he kept his end papers and leafed absent-mindedly through them. Every book should begin with attractive end papers, he had once told Maggie, preferably in a dark colour, dark red or dark blue, depending on the binding. When you open the book, it's like going to the theatre. First you see the curtain, then it's pulled aside and the show begins. "Maggie, I really do have to work now," he said without turning round. "The sooner I'm through with Eleanor's books, the sooner we can go home again." Maggie put the book about creatures who are masters of disguise back in its place. "Suppose he didn't stick the horns on?" she asked. "What?" "Gwyn's horns. Suppose Dustfigure didn't stick them on?" "Well, he did." Mo drew a chair up to the table that was not long enough for him. "By the way, Eleanor's gone shopping. If you feel faint with hunger before she gets back, just make yourself a couple of pancakes, okay?" "Okay," murmured Maggie. For a moment she wondered whether to tell him about her date with Dustfinger that night, but then she decided against it. "Do you think I can take some of these books to my room?" she asked instead. "I'm sure you can, so long as they don't disappear into your box." "Like that book thief you once told me about?" Maggie put 3 books under her left arm and 4 under her right arm. "How many was he stole?" 30,000? 40,000, said Mo, "but at least he didn't kill the owners." "No, that was the Spanish monk whose name I've forgotten." Maggie went over to the door and opened it with her toe. "Dustfinger says Capricorn would kill you to get hold of that book." She tried to make her voice sound casual. "Would he, Mo?" "Maggie!" Mo turned round with a paper knife, pretending to point it at her threateningly. Go and lie in the sun or bury your pretty nose in those books, but please let me get some work done. And tell Dustfinger I shall carve him into very thin slices with this knife as he keeps on going telling you such nonsense. That wasn't a proper answer, said Maggie, making her way out into the passage with an armful of books. Once in her room, she spread the books out on the huge bed and began to read. She read about beetles who moved into empty snail shells as we might move into an empty house, about frogs shaped like leaves and caterpillars with brightly coloured spines on their backs, white-bearded monkeys, stripy anteaters, and cats that dig in the ground for sweet potatoes. There seemed to be everything here, every creature Maggie could imagine, and even more that she could never have dreamed existed at all. But none of Eleanor's clever books said a word about martens with horns. Chapter 6, Fire and Stars. The day passed slowly. Maggie saw Mo only in the afternoon, when Eleanor came back from doing her shopping, and half an hour later gave them spaghetti with some kind of ready-made sauce. I'm afraid I've no patience with toiling over a stove, she said as she put the dishes onto the table. Perhaps our friend with the furry animal can cook. Dustfinger merely shrugged his shoulders apologetically. Sorry, I'm no use to you that way. Mo cooks very well, said Maggie, stirring the thin, watery sauce into her spaghetti. Mo's here to restore my books, not to cook for us, replied Eleanor sharply. What about you, though? Maggie shrugged. I can make pancakes, she said. Why don't you get some cookery books? You have books of every other kind. I'm sure you'd find cookery books a help. Eleanor didn't even deign to reply to this suggestion. And by the way, there's a rule for night time, she said, when they had all been eating in silence for a while. I won't have candlelight in my house. Fire makes me nervous. It's far too greedy for paper. Maggie gulped. She felt caught in the act, for of course she had brought candles with her. They were on her bedside table, upstairs, where Eleanor must have seen them. However, Eleanor was not looking at Maggie, but at Dustfinger, who was playing with a box of matches. I hope you'll take that rule to heart, she said to him, since we're obviously going to have the pleasure of your company for another night. Yes, if I may impose on your hospitality a little longer, I'll be off first thing in the morning, I promise. Dustfinger was still holding the matches. He didn't seem bothered by Eleanor's distrustful gaze. I'd say someone here has the wrong idea about fire, he added. It bites like a fierce little animal, admittedly, but you can't tame it. And with these words he took a match out of the box, struck it, and popped the flame into his open mouth. Maggie held her breath as his lips closed around the burning matchstick. Dustfinger opened his mouth again, took out the spent match, smiled, and left it on his empty plate. You see, Eleanor, he said, he didn't bite me. It's easier to tame than a kitten, and almost as easy as a dog. Eleanor just wrinkled her nose, but Maggie was so amazed that she could hardly take her eyes off Dustfinger's scarred face. She looked at Mo. The little trick with the burning match didn't seem to have surprised him. He shot a warning glance at Dustfinger, who meekly put the box of matches away in his trouser pocket. But of course I'll keep the no candles rule, he was quick to say. That's no problem, really. Eleanor nodded. Good, she said. And one more thing. If you go out again as soon as it's dark this evening, the way you did last night, you'd better not be back too late, because I switched the burglar alarm on at 9:30 on the dot. Ah, then I was in luck yesterday evening. Dustfinger slipped some spaghetti into his bag. Eleanor didn't notice, but Maggie did. Yes, I do enjoy walking at night. The world's more to my liking then. Not so loud, not so fast, not so crowded, and a good deal more mysterious. But I wasn't planning to walk this evening. I have other plans for tonight. And I'll have to ask you to switch this wonderful system of yours on a bit later than usual. Oh, indeed, and why, may I ask? Dustfinger winked at Maggie. Well, I've promised to put on a little show for this young lady, he said. It begins about an hour before midnight. Oh, yes, Eleanor dabbed some sauce off her lips with her napkin. Little show? Why not in daylight? After all, the young lady's only 12 years old. She should be in bed at 8 o'clock. Maggie tightened her lips. She hadn't been to bed as early as 8 since her 5th birthday, but she wasn't going to the trouble of explaining that to Eleanor. Instead, she admired the casual way Dustfinger reacted to Eleanor's hostile gaze. Ah, but you see, the tricks I want to show Maggie wouldn't look so good by day, he said, leaning back in his chair. I'm afraid I need the black cloak of night. Why don't you come and watch too? Then you'll understand why it all has to be done in the dark. Go on, accept his offer, Eleanor, said Mo. You'll enjoy the show, and then perhaps you won't think fire's so sinister. It's not that I think it's sinister. I don't like it, that's all, remarked Eleanor, unmoved. He can juggle, Maggie burst out, with 8 balls. 11, Dustfinger corrected her, but juggling is more of a daylight skill. Eleanor retrieved a string of spaghetti from the tablecloth and glanced first at Maggie and then at Mo. She looked cross. Oh, very well. I don't want to be a spoil sport, she said. I shall go to bed with a book at 9:30 as usual and put the alarm on first. But when Maggie tells me she's going out for this private performance, I'll switch it off again for an hour. Would that be enough time? Ample time, said Dustfinger, bowing so low to her that the tip of his nose collided with the rim of his plate. Maggie bit back her laughter. It was 5 to 11 when she knocked at Eleanor's bedroom door. Come in, she heard Eleanor call, and when she put her head round the door, she saw her aunt sitting up in bed, poring over a catalogue as thick as a telephone directory. Oh, too expensive, she murmured. Take my advice, Maggie. Never develop a passion you can't afford. You'll eat your heart away like a bookworm. Take this book here, for instance. Eleanor tapped her finger on the left-hand page of her catalogue so hard that it wouldn't have surprised Maggie if she had bored a hole in it. What a fine edition, and in such good condition, too. I've been wanting it for 15 years, but it just costs too much money, far too much. Sighing, she closed her catalogue, dropped it on the rug, and swung her legs out of bed. To Maggie's surprise, she was wearing a long, flowered nightdress. She looked younger in it, almost like a girl who has woken up one morning to find her face wrinkled. Wrinkled? Ah, well, you'll probably never be as crazy as I am, she muttered, putting a thick pair of socks on her bare feet. Your father's not inclined to be crazy, and your mother never was either. Quite the opposite. I never knew anyone with a cooler head. My father, on the other hand, was at least as mad as me. I inherited over half my books from him, and what good did they do him? Did they keep him alive? Far from it. He died of a stroke at a book auction. Isn't that ridiculous? With the best will in the world, Maggie didn't know what to say to that. My mother, she asked and said, did you know her well? Hello, Godcat. Welcome back from your lurks. How's it going? What have you been lurking and doing anyway? My elbow is getting sore from resting it on my desk where I've been propping this book up. Maybe I need one of those little the madoohickeys. You know, like a book rest thing. My elbow's literally gone red. More modding and Valolo. Have you had fun? Oh, I've got a tickled nose. Hold on. We've got about 8 minutes to the next load of ads. And I'd quite like to do... Let me see. It'd be good if we could read the whole section on Dustfinger in one little go. But I have no idea if we'll manage to make it in 8 minutes. We will try, though. Hee hee ha ha. I think most people in here now don't see ads at this point. Either way, I will keep going. Eleanor snorted as if she had asked a silly question. Of course I did. It was here that your father met her. Didn't he ever tell you? Maggie shook her head. He doesn't talk about her much. Well, probably better not. Why probe old wounds? And you're not particularly like her. She painted that sign on the library door. Come on then, or you'll miss this show of yours. Maggie followed Eleanor down the unlit corridor. For a moment she had the odd feeling that her mother might step out of one of the many doors smiling at her. There was hardly a light on in the whole vast house, and once or twice Maggie bumped her knee on a chair or a little table that she hadn't seen in the gloom. Why is it so dark everywhere here? She asked as Eleanor felt around for the light switch in the entrance hall. Because I'd rather spend my money on books than unnecessary electricity, replied Eleanor, looking at the light she had turned on as if she thought the stupid thing should go easy on the power. Then she made her way over to a metal box fixed to the wall near the front door and hidden behind a thick, dusty curtain. I hope you switched your light off before you knocked on my door, she asked, as she opened the box. Of course, said Maggie, though it wasn't true. Turn round, Eleanor told her before setting to work on the alarm system. She frowned. Heavens, all these knobs. I hope I haven't done something wrong again. Tell me as soon as the show's over, and don't even think of seizing your chance to slink into the library and take a book off the shelves. Remember that I sleep right next door, and my hearing is keener than a bat's. Maggie bit back the answer on the tip of her tongue. Eleanor opened the front door. Without a word, Maggie pushed past her and went outside. It was a mild night, full of strange scents and the chirping of crickets. Were you always as nice as this to my mother? She asked, as Eleanor was about to close the door behind her. Eleanor looked at her for a moment as if turned to stone. Oh, yes, I think so, she said. Yes, I'm sure as what I was. And she was always as cheeky as you two. Have fun with your fire eater. Then she shut the door. We got 5 minutes. I think if we run the ad now, then we can get through all of Dustfinger's part without it running on its own. And you guys may not know it, but I know this part, and I think it's great. So I want to read it in one little succinct go. So I'm running ads, and then we'll get back to it, and I will do a whole bunch of drinking water, so I don't die. Hee hee ha ha. To be fair, this is probably one of the few times on stream where I've drunk quite a lot of water. So logically, this is a good thing. I'm certainly very hydrated. It's always useful. Whoa. Whoa, what? We should do more of these? Do more of what? What are we doing more of? Once a month, Min? Oh, you want me to do more reading streams so that I do more hydrations without having to be bribed with gold doubloons for hydrations. Do we want reading streams once a month? I mean, I was planning on kind of wiggling them in where I could. Obviously, we've got a fairly set schedule, so I'm not entirely sure where I'd put one. Maybe we could do kind of a every other Tuesday thing. Oh, thank you very much for the sub. Wolf, shit ran out. Thank you for rejigging it, resubbing. That's the word. Holy fuck! I fully forgot the word. Thank you very much for resubbing, Wolf. I hope you enjoy the reading streams now that they're finally here. Took me so long. I was trying to find a book, a library for the background. I couldn't find any. It was so rough. If anyone sees a solid library background that isn't made with AI and is free/cheap and doesn't have windows, that'd be very useful. Thank you. Hee hee ha ha. I've been searching. Thank you, Godcat. We totally don't need to get me a drawing tablet though. I do very well with mouse and keyboard on MS Paint, just saying. I'd like one, but We need it. I think you expect I'm going to turn into a world-class artist the second I get this. I'd like to inform everyone. You need to get a drawing tablet. I'd still like to inform everyone. I'm not going to end up being a world-class artist just because I have a drawing tablet. Okay, don't have too high expectations from me. Just whenever I do end up getting one, different feeling. I will try. I'm going to teach you. Okay. I've used one previously. Because my dad had one. I don't know if he still does. I keep meaning to ask him if he's still got it, and then I keep forgetting because I'm an idiot. But we will attempt to get a drawing tablet at some point, and then we can let Godcat spend his 10,000 plus points on making me a master artist. Indeed, yes. Okay. I will get back to the reading this now. Yippee. We are... Gosh, I've forgotten what chapter we're on again. Chapter 6, page 71. You guys can all have a proper introduction to Dustfinger now. I very much so love his character, to be honest. So it's cool that you guys get to finally hear about it. Haha. Okay. Let's rumble. Give me, I'm gonna draw something. I'll give you ideas to Samu Godcat. Okie dokie. Where was I? As Maggie was going through the dark garden behind the house, she suddenly heard unexpected music. It filled the night air as if it had been only waiting for Maggie's footsteps. Strange music, a carnival mixture of bells, pipes, and drums, both boisterous and sad. Maggie wouldn't have been surprised to find a whole troop of fairground entertainers waiting for her on the lawn behind Elendor's house, but only Dustfinger stood there. He was waiting where Maggie had found him that afternoon. I said before a horde of cats. That'd be good. He was waiting where Maggie had found him that afternoon. The music came from a cassette recorder on the grass beside the wooden deck chair. Dustfinger had placed a garden bench on the edge of the lawn for his audience. Lighted torches were stuck into the ground to the right and left of it, and two more were burning on the lawn, casting quivering shadows in the night. The shadows danced across the grass like servants conjured up by Dustfinger from some dark world for this occasion. He himself stood there bare-chested, his skin as pale as the moon, which was hanging in the sky right above Eleanor's house, as if it too had turned up especially for Dustfinger's show. When Maggie emerged from the darkness, Dustfinger bowed to her. "Sit down, pretty lady," he called over the music. "We were all just waiting for you." Shyly, Maggie sat down on the bench and looked around her. The two dark glass bottles she had seen in Dustfinger's bag were sitting on the deck chair. Something whitish shimmered in the bottle on the left, as if Dustfinger had filled it with moonlight. A dozen torches with white wadding heads were wedged between the wooden rungs of the chair, and beside the cassette recorder stood a bucket and a large big-bellied vase, which, if Maggie remembered correctly, came from Eleanor's entrance hall. For a moment she let her eyes wander to the windows of the house. There was no light in Mo's bedroom. He was probably still working. But one floor below, Maggie saw Eleanor standing at her lighted window. The moment Maggie looked her way, she drew the curtain, as if she had felt Maggie watching her, but she still stayed at the window. Her shadow was a dark outline against the pale yellow curtain. "Do you hear how quiet it is?" Dustfinger switched the recorder off. The silence of the night fell on Maggie's ears, muffled as if by cotton wool. Not a leaf moved. There was nothing to be heard but the torches crackling and the chirping of the crickets. Dustfinger switched the music back on. "I had a private word with the wind," he said. "There's one thing you should know. If the wind takes it into its head to play with fire, then even I can't tame the blaze. But it gave me its word of honor to keep still tonight and not spoil our fun." So saying, he picked up one of the torches from Eleanor's deck chair. He sipped from the bottle with the moonlight in it and spat something whitish out into the big vase. Then he dipped the torch he was holding into the bucket took it out again, and held its dripping head of wadding to one of its burning sisters. The fires flared up so suddenly it made Maggie jump. However, Dustfinger put the second bottle to his lips, filling his mouth until his scarred cheeks were bulging. Then he took a deep, deep breath, arched his body like a bow, and spat whatever was in his mouth out into the air above the burning torch. The fireball hung over Eleanor's lawn, a bright, blazing globe of fire. It ate away at the darkness like a living thing, and it was so big, Maggie felt sure everything around it would go up in flames. The grass, the deck chair, and Dustfinger himself. They just spun round and round on the spot, exuberant as a dancing child breathing out more fire. He made the fire climb high in the air as if to set the stars alight. Then he lit a second torch and ran its flame over his bare arms. He looked as happy as a child playing with a pet animal. The fire licked his skin like something living, a darting, burning creature that he had befriended, a creature that caressed him and danced for him and drove the night away. He threw the torch high in the air where the fireball had just been blazing, caught it as it came down, lit more, juggled with 3, 4, 5 torches. Their fire whirled around him, danced with him, but never hurt him. Dustfinger, the tamer of flames, the man who breathes sparks, the friend of fire. He made the torches disappear as if the darkness had devoured them, bowed to the speechless Maggie with a smile, before once more spitting fire out into the night's black face. Afterwards she could never say what had distracted her attention from the whirling torches and the shower of sparks, making her look up once more at the house and its windows. Perhaps you feel the presence of evil on your skin like sudden heat or cold. Or perhaps it was just that the light now seeping through the library shutters caught her eye, the light falling on the rhododendron bushes where their leaves pressed close to the wood. Perhaps. She thought she heard voices rising above Dustfinger's music, men's voices, and a terrible fear rose inside her, as dark and strange as the terror she had felt on the night when she first saw Dustfinger standing out in the yard. As she jumped up, the burning torch slipped from his hands and fell on the grass. He quickly trod the fire out before it could spread any further, then followed the direction of Maggie's eyes, and he too looked at the house without a word. Maggie began to run. Gravel crunched under her feet as she raced towards the house. The front door stood ajar. There was no light in the entrance hall, but Maggie heard low voices, as loud and frightful, echoing down the corridor that led to the library. "Mo," she called, and there was the fear back again, digging its curved beak into her heart, taking her breath away. The library door was open too. Maggie was about to rush in when 2 strong hands grasped her by the shoulders. "Quiet," breathed Eleanor, pulling her into her bedroom. Maggie saw that her fingers were shaking as she locked the door. "Don't!" Maggie dragged Eleanor's hand away and tried to turn the key. She wanted to shout that she must help her father, but Eleanor put a hand over her mouth and pulled her away from the door, hard as Maggie struggled, hitting and kicking. Eleanor was strong, much stronger than Maggie. "There are too many of them," Eleanor whispered as Maggie tried to bite her fingers. "About 4 or 5 big strong men, and they're armed." She hauled the struggling Maggie over to the wall by the bed. "I've told myself 100 times, 1,000 times, I ought to buy a revolver," she muttered, pressing her ear to the wall. "Of course it's here," the voice carried through the wall without Maggie's having to strain to hear it, rasping like a cat's tongue. "Shall we fetch your little daughter from the garden to show us just where, or would you rather find it for us yourself?" Maggie tried to pull Eleanor's hand away from her mouth. "Stop it, for goodness sake," Eleanor hissed in her ear. "You'll only put him in more danger, do you understand?" "My daughter, what do you know about my daughter?" That was Mo's voice. Maggie sobbed aloud, and Eleanor's fingers were instantly back over her face. "I tried to call the police," she whispered in Maggie's ear, "but the lines are all down." "Oh, we know all we need to know," the other voice again. "So where's the book?" "I'll give it to you." Mo's voice sounded weary. "But I'm going with you, because I want that book back as soon as Capricorn is finished with it." Going with them? What did he mean? He couldn't leave just like that. Maggie tried making for the door again, but Eleanor held her fast. Maggie did her best to push her away, but Eleanor simply wrapped her strong arms around her and pressed her fingers to Maggie's lips once more. "All the better. We were told to bring you anyway," said a second voice. It had a broad, coarse accent. You've no idea how Capricorn longs to hear your voice. He's got great faith in your abilities, Capricorn has. That's right, the replacement Capricorn found for you makes a terrible hash of it. The rasping voice again. Look at Cockerel there. Maggie heard feet scraping on the floor. He's limping, and Flatnose's face has seen better days. Not that he was ever much of a beauty. Don't just stand there talking, Basta. We haven't got forever. How about it? Do we take the kid as well? Another voice? That one sounded as if the speaker's nose were being pinched. No, Mo snapped at him. My daughter stays here or I won't give you the book. One of the men laughed. Oh yes, Silver Tongue, you'd give it to us all right, but don't worry. We weren't told to bring her. A child would just slow us down, and Capricorn's been waiting for you long enough already. So where's that book? Maggie pressed her ear against the wall so hard that it hurt. She heard footsteps, and then a sound like something being pushed aside. Eleanor, beside her, held her breath. Not a bad hiding place, said the cat-like voice. Wrap it up, Cockerel, and take good care of it. After you, Silvertongue, let's go. They left the library. Maggie tried desperately to wriggle out of Eleanor's arms. She heard the sound of the library door closing and then steps moving away, getting fainter and fainter. After that, all was still. Quite suddenly, Eleanor let go of her. Maggie rushed to the door, unlocked it, sobbing, and ran down the corridor to the library. It was deserted, no Mo. The books stood, ranged tidily on their shelves, except in one place where there was a wide, dark gap. Maggie thought she saw a hinged flap, well hidden, standing open among the books. Incredible, she heard Eleanor saying behind her. They really were after just that one book. But Maggie pushed her aside and ran along the corridor. Maggie, Eleanor called after her. Wait! But what was there to wait for? For the strangers to take her father away? She heard Eleanor running after her. Eleanor's arms might be stronger, but Maggie's legs were faster. There was still no light in the entrance hall. The front door stood wide open, and a cold wind blew in Maggie's face as she stumbled breathlessly out into the night. Mo, she shouted. She thought she saw car headlights come on where the drive disappeared into the trees, and an engine started. Maggie ran that way. She tripped and fell, grazing her knee on the gravel, which was wet with dew. Warm blood trickled down her leg, but she took no notice. She ran on, limping and sobbing, until she had reached the big wrought-iron gate. The road beyond it was empty. Mo was gone. Dun dun dun. Crazy. What have you guys been chatting about? Samu getting a new drawing for us. How does Dustfinger sound not in English? I assume in German. Thank you for my headpad, Godcat. Does it sound very different in German? Because I'm saying it exactly as it's written. It's written Dustfinger. I guess you could say it really fast. Dustfinger. That does sound a little bit stupid though. Just say. Oh, we are almost already at midnight. Jesus Christ. We are at page 78. So I think that we can hit 100 in a reasonable time. At least I'm hoping so. We'll see though. We are still 17 minutes away from our next proper break, so I will keep going. Okay. Yay. Oh wait, what's up? Also, for those of you, when did Pine come? What Pine? What Pine is this? Pineapple Gonzone. Ah! Pine came yesterday, shortly after you gave me a shout out on your stream. Thank you for that, by the way. It says most reason follow it. Yeah. Pine came during Raft, which was yesterday. I'm quite yeah. Pine, yes. Yeah. It's good. Thank you. I love that it makes the fucking model wiggle whenever I itch my nose. Anyway, let's rumble on. Chapter 7. What the Night Hides. Dustfinger was hiding behind a chestnut tree when Meggie ran past him. He saw her stop at the gate and look down the road. He heard her calling her father's name in a desperate voice. Her cries, as faint as the chirping of a cricket in the vast black night, were lost in the darkness. And when she gave up, it was suddenly very quiet, and Dustfinger saw Maggie's slim figure standing there, as if she would never move again. All her strength seemed to have forsaken her, as if the next gust of wind might blow her away. She stood there so long that Dustfinger eventually closed his eyes so as not to have to look at her, but then he heard her weeping and his face turned hot with shame. He stood there, without a sound, his back to the tree trunk, waiting for Meggie to go back to the house. But still she didn't move. At last, when his legs were quite numb, she turned like a marionette with some of its strings cut and went back towards the house. She was no longer crying as she passed Dustfinger, but she was wiping the tears from her eyes, and for a terrible moment he felt an urge to go to her, comfort her, and explain why he had told Capricorn everything. But Meggie had already passed him, and had quickened her pace as if her strength were returning. Faster and faster she walked, until she had disappeared among the black trees. Only then did Dustfinger come out from behind the tree, put his rucksack on his back, pick up the 2 bags containing all his worldly goods, and stride off towards the gate, which was still open. The night swallowed him up like a thieving fox. The 2 events are now confirmed. I'm doing a passive donathon and road race is happening. Very nice. Love it. I'm excited to see the progress. How long do you think it's gonna take? What's your time goal on this? Do you have a time goal? Well, maybe not. Depends on how long the donathon takes. My model. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm gonna sound like a broken record now. Please allow it. After that, it's gonna rock it with the 2 claps. True. Did you look into the people that I sent you? Any of them seem okay? I've basically only sent one that have VGen codes. I've looked a bit. Yes, nice. If I find any more on my travels, then I will send them over to you as well. To be fair, I see them quite often because I'm constantly entering giveaways that I don't win. When you're stalking? Yes, on my stalking. But in this instance, stalking is useful, just saying. I attempted a whole bunch of stalking today and found essentially nothing of what I needed. But to be fair, today I was stalking background illustrators so I could attempt to find a library that didn't have any windows, or even just some books. Nothing. It was very unhelpful. Please continue stories so I can fall asleep. Okie dokie. We will continue again. Chapter 8. Alone. Eleanor was standing in the brightly lit doorway of the house when Maggie came back. She had put a coat on over her nightdress. The night was warm, but a cold wind was blowing from the lake. How desperate the child looked, and lost. Eleanor remembered the feeling. There was nothing worse. They've taken him away. Maggie's voice almost choked in her helpless rage. She glared angrily at Eleanor. Why did you hold me back? We could have helped him. Her fists were clenched as if she wanted to hit out blindly. Eleanor remembered that feeling too. Sometimes you wanted to lash out at the whole world, but it did no good, none at all. The grief remained. Don't talk such nonsense, she said bluntly. How could we have helped him? They'd just have taken you too. And how would your father have liked that? Would it have done him any good? No. So don't stand around out here any longer. Come indoors. But Maggie didn't move. They're taking him to Capricorn, she whispered, so softly that Eleanor could hardly make out what she was saying. Taking him where? Maggie just shook her head and wiped her sleeve over her tear-stained face. The police will be here any minute, said Eleanor. I called them on your father's mobile. I never wanted one of those, but now I think I'd better get one after all. They simply cut my phone line. Maggie still hadn't moved. She was trembling. They'll be well away by now anyway, she said. Good heavens, I'm sure no harm will come to him. Eleanor wrapped her coat more closely around her. The wind was getting up. There'd be rain soon, she felt sure. How do you know? Maggie's voice was trembling with anger. Heavens, thought Eleanor, if looks could kill, I'd be pushing up the daisies. Because he went with them of his own free will, she said crossly. You heard him too, didn't you? Maggie bowed her head. Of course she'd heard him. Yes, she whispered. He was more worried about the book than me. Eleanor had no answer to that. Her own father had been firmly convinced that books deserved more attention than children, and when he suddenly died, she and her two sisters had barely noticed his absence. It was as if he was just sitting in the library as usual, dusting his books. But Maggie's father wasn't like that. Nonsense, of course he was worried about you, she said. I don't know any father who's more besotted with his daughter than yours. You wait and see, he'll soon be back. Now do come in. She reached out her hand to Maggie. I'll make you some hot milk with honey. Isn't that what children get when they're really miserable? But Maggie ignored the hand. She turned suddenly and ran away as if something had occurred to her. Here, wait a minute. Muttering crossly, Eleanor slipped her feet into her garden shoes and stumbled after her. The silly girl was running around behind the house to the place where the fire eater had given his performance. But of course there was no one on the lawn now, just the burnt-out torches still stuck in the ground. Well, well, so Master Matchstick Swallower seems to be gone too. At least he's not in the house. Perhaps he followed them. The girl went up to one of the burnt-out torches and touched its charred head. That's it, he saw what happened and followed them. She looked hopefully at Eleanor. Of course, that's what must have happened. Eleanor really did try hard not to sound sarcastic. How do you think he followed them? She added silently, her mind. On foot? But instead of saying so out loud, she put a hand on Maggie's shoulder. Heavens above, the girl was still shaking. Come on, she said. The police will soon be here, and there's nothing we can do just now. Your father will surely turn up again in a few days' time, and perhaps your fire-breathing friend will be with him. You'll just have to put up with me in the meantime. Maggie merely nodded, and unresistingly let Eleanor lead her back to the house. On one condition, though, said Eleanor as they reached the front door. Maggie looked at her suspiciously. While we're here on our own, do you think you could stop looking at me as if you wanted to poison me all the time? Could that be arranged? A small, sad little smile stole over Maggie's face. I should think so, she said. The two policemen whose car drew up on the gravel forecourt a little later asked a lot of questions, to which neither Eleanor nor Maggie had many answers. No, they had never seen the men before. No, they hadn't stolen money or anything else of value, just a book. The two men exchanged amused glances when Eleanor said that. She immediately gave them an angry lecture on the value of rare books. But that only made things worse. When Maggie finally said they'd be sure to find her father if they tracked down a bad man called Capricorn, they looked at each other as if she had seriously claimed that Mo had been carried off by the big bad wolf. Then they drove away again, and Eleanor took Maggie to her room. The silly child had tears in her eyes once more, and Eleanor hadn't the faintest idea how you set about comforting a girl of 12, so she just told her, Your mother always slept in this room, which was probably the worst thing she could have said. She quickly added, Read a story if you can't get to sleep, cleared her throat twice, and then went back through the dark, empty house to her own room. Why did it suddenly strike her as so big and so empty? In all the years she had lived alone here, it had never troubled her to know that only her books awaited her behind all the doors. It was a long time since she and her sisters had played hide-and-seek in the many rooms. How quietly they always had to slip past the library door. Outside, the wind rattled the shutters of the windows. Heavens, I won't be able to sleep a wink, thought Eleanor, and then she thought of the book waiting beside her bed, and with a mixture of anticipation and a very guilty conscience, She disappeared into her bedroom. Chapter 9. A Poor Exchange. Maggie didn't sleep in her own bed that night. As soon as Eleanor's footsteps had died away, she ran to Mo's room. He hadn't unpacked yet, and his bag stood open beside the bed. Only his books were on the bedside table, and a partly eaten chocolate bar. Mo loved chocolate. Even the mustiest old chocolate Santa Claus wasn't safe from him. Maggie broke a square off the bar and put it in her mouth, but it tasted of nothing but sadness. Mo's quilt was cold when she crept under it, and the pillow didn't yet smell of him either, only of washing powder. Maggie put her hand on the pillow. Yes, there it was. Not a book, a photograph. Maggie drew it out. It was a picture of her mother. Mo always kept it under his pillow. When she was little, she believed that Mo had simply invented a mother for her one day because he thought she'd have liked to have one. He told her wonderful stories about her. Did I like her? Maggie always asked. Yes, very much. Where is she? She had to go away when you were just 3. Why? She just had to go away. A long way away? Yes, a very long way. Is she dead? No, I'm sure she isn't. Maggie was used to the strange answers Mo gave to many of her questions. By the time she was 10, she no longer believed in a mother made up by Mo. She believed in one who had simply gone away. These things happened, and as long as Mo was there, she hadn't particularly missed having a mother. But now he was gone, and she was alone with Eleanor and Eleanor's pebble eyes. She took Mo's sweater out of his bag and buried her face in it. It's the book's fault, she kept thinking. It's all that book's fault. Why didn't he give it to Dustfinger? Sometimes, when you're so sad you don't want to do it, it helps to be angry. But then the tears came back again all the same, and Maggie fell asleep with the salty taste of them on her lips. When she woke all of a sudden, her heart pounding and her hair damp with sweat, it all came back to her. The men, Mo's voice, the empty road. I'll go and look for him, thought Maggie. Yes, that's what I'll do. Outside the sky was just turning red. Not long now and the sun would rise. It would be better if she was gone before it got really light. Mo's jacket was hanging over the chair under the window as if he'd only just taken it off. Maggie took his wallet out of it. She'd need the money. Then she crept back to her room to pack a few things, only the essentials, a change of clothing and a photograph of herself and Mo so that she could ask people if they'd seen him. Of course she couldn't take her book box. She thought of hiding it under the bed, but she decided to write Eleanor a note instead. Dear Eleanor, she wrote, although she didn't really think that was the correct way to address an aunt. I have to go and look for my father, she went on. Don't worry about me. Well, Eleanor wasn't likely to do that anyway. And please don't tell the police I've gone, or they'll be sure to bring me back. My favourite books are in my box. I'm afraid I can't take them with me. Please look after them. I'll come and fetch them as soon as I find my father. Thank you, Maggie. P.S. I know exactly how many books there are in the box. She crossed out that last sentence. It would only annoy Eleanor, and who knew what she might do with the books then? Sell them, probably. After all, Mo had given them all particularly nice bindings. None of them was bound in leather, because Maggie didn't like to think of a calf or a pig losing its skin for her books. Luckily, Mo understood how she felt. Many hundreds of years ago, he had once told Maggie, people made the bindings for particularly valuable books from the skin of unborn calves. Chata Vajniya non nata. A pretty name for a terrible thing. And those books, Mo told her, were full of the most wonderful words about love and kindness and mercy. While Maggie was packing her bag, she did her best not to think, because if she did, she knew she'd have to ask herself where she was going to search for Mo. She kept pushing the thought away, but all the same her hand slowed down, and at last she was standing beside her packed bag, no longer able to ignore the cruel little voice inside her. Well, then where are you going to look, Maggie? It whispered. Are you going to turn left or right when you reach the road? You don't even know that. How far do you think you'll get before the police pick you up? A 12-year-old girl carrying a bag with a wild story about a father who's disappeared and no mother they can take her back to. We're about 2 minutes away from an ad, so I'm going to run it now, and then we will pick back up in a second. Ads are indeed very cringe. However, it gives me a minute to drink plenty of liquid. And thank you, I'm posture checking and hydrating. They're very cringe, yes, but it means that I can hydrate and take a mini break. And if we don't read through the ads, it means that people who aren't subbed don't miss any of the story. Be healthy. Healthy is good. Tell that to everyone else in here. 20 seconds on the ads. I gotta stretch my spine a touch. Be healthy and hydrate with liquor. I think my ability to read would potentially go a touch downhill if I hydrated with liquor every single time. Just saying. What do I know? Obviously. But I do feel like it wouldn't help me out in the grand scheme of things. That's just me, though. So does my ability to play Dark Souls, but you don't see me complaining. Hi, no one said I was complaining. We fairly regularly do drunk Val streams. I'm just saying. Fuck it, if people want me to read the books and be coherent, we cannot hydrate with liquor. We have to choose water. That's just how it is. What? Okay. The ads are over according to my thingy-majig. So, we will get back into it. We're, I think, at page 87 or so, maybe 88. So we're almost at the 100. And then around the 100, or whenever I finish a chapter around the 100, we'll cut her off. And we'll do another reading stream at some point within the month. Hopefully I can do like one a week. But it may end up being like one every 2 weeks or so. I do not know yet. My dear husband is still on holiday, so we could definitely fit in more than usual. So maybe we'll have another one within the week. Maybe Tuesday. Maybe we'll do one Tuesday. Anyway. We are at chapter something. Chapter 9. Maybe we'll go until chapter 10. And we are on page 88. And as I've mentioned, but I'll mention it again, if anyone has missed part of the story, the VOD for today and all other VODs of reading will of course be on the YouTube so that people can catch up. Whenever I finish book 1, we'll also do a little movie night in the Discord server, and we'll watch the movie adaptation of this book because I think it's quite good. Haha. Anyway. Maggie put her hands over her ears, but what use was that when the voice was inside her head? She stood like that for quite a long time. Then she shook her head until the voice stopped and dragged her bag out into the corridor. It was heavy, much too heavy. Maggie opened it again and put almost everything back in her room. She kept only a sweater, a book, she had to have at least one, the photo and Mo's wallet. Now she could carry the bag as far as she had to. She slipped quietly downstairs with the bag in one hand and the note for Eleanor in the other. The morning sunlight was already filtering through the cracks of the shutters, but it was as silent in the big house as if even the books on the shelves were sleeping. Only the sound of quiet snoring came through Eleanor's bedroom door. Maggie really meant to push the note under the door, but it wouldn't fit. She hesitated for a moment and then pressed the door handle down. It was light in Eleanor's bedroom, even though the shutters were closed. The bedside lamp was switched on, so obviously Eleanor had gone to sleep while she was reading. She was lying on her back with her mouth slightly open, snoring at the plaster angel on the ceiling above her, and she was clutching a book to her chest. Maggie recognized it at once. She was beside the bed in an instant. "Where did you get that?" she shouted, tugging the book out of Eleanor's arms, which were heavy with sleep. "That's my father's." Eleanor woke as suddenly as if Maggie had tipped cold water over her face. You stole it, cried Maggie, beside herself with rage. And you brought those men here. Yes, that's what happened. You and that Capricorn are in this together. You had my father taken away, and who knows what you did with poor Dustfinger. You wanted that book from the start. I saw the way you looked at it, like something alive. It's probably worth $1 million, or $2 million, or $3 million. Eleanor was sitting up in bed, staring at the flowers on her nightdress and saying not a word. She didn't move until Maggie was struggling to get her breath back. Finished? She asked. Or are you planning to stand there yelling your head off until you drop dead? Her voice sounded as brusque as usual, but it had another note in it too, a touch of guilt. I'm going to tell the police, cried Maggie. I'll tell them you stole the book, and they ought to ask you where my father is. I saved you, and this book. Eleanor swung her legs out of bed, went over to the window and opened the shutters. Oh yes, and what about Mo? Maggie's voice was rising again. What's going to happen when they realize he gave them the wrong book? It's all your fault if they hurt him. Dustfinger said Capricorn would kill him if he didn't hand over the book. He'll kill him. Eleanor put her head out of the window and took a deep breath. Then she turned round again. What nonsense, she said crossly. You think far too much of what that matchstick eater says, and you've obviously read too many bad adventure stories. Kill your father, heavens above. He's not a secret agent or anything dangerous like that. He restores old books. It's not exactly a life-threatening profession. I just wanted to take a look at the book in peace. That's the only reason I swapped it around. How could I guess those villains would come here in the middle of the night to take your father away along with their precious book? All he told me was that some crazy collector had been badgering him for years. How was I to know this collector wouldn't shrink from breaking and entering, not to mention kidnapping? Even I wouldn't think up an idea like that. Well, maybe for just 1 or 2 books in the world I might. But that's what Dustfinger said. He said Capricorn would kill him. Maggie was clutching the book tightly, as if that were the only way of preventing yet more misfortunes from creeping out of it. It was as if she suddenly remembered Dustfinger's voice again, and the little creatures screeching and struggling, she whispered, would be as sweet as honey to him. What? Who are you talking about now? Eleanor perched on the edge of the bed and made Maggie sit down beside her. You'd better tell me everything you know about this business. Begin at the beginning. Maggie found the book and leafed through the pages until she found the big N with the animal that looked so like Gwyn sitting on it. Maggie, I'm talking to you. Eleanor shook her roughly by the shoulders. Who were you talking about just now? Capricorn. Maggie just whispered the name. Danger seemed to cling to it, every single letter of it. Capricorn. Go on. I heard you mention that name a couple of times before, but who, for goodness sake, is this Capricorn? Maggie closed the book, stroked the binding, and looked at it from all sides. It doesn't give the title on the cover, she murmured. No, not on the cover or inside. Eleanor rose and went to her wardrobe. There are a good many books where you can't find the title straight away. After all, it's a relatively modern habit to put it on the cover. When books were still bound so that with spines curved inwards, the title might be on the side, if anywhere. But in most cases you found it out only when you opened the book. It wasn't until bookbinders learned to make rounded spines that the title moved to the front of the book. Yes, I know, said Maggie impatiently. But this isn't an old book. I know what old books look like. Eleanor looked at her ironically. Oh, I apologize. I was forgetting you're a real little expert. But you're right. Yes, this book isn't very old. It was published almost exactly 38 years ago. Ridiculously young for a book. She disappeared behind the open wardrobe door. But of course it has a title all the same. It's called Inkheart. I suspect your father intentionally bound it so that no one could identify it from just looking at the cover. You don't even find the title on the first page. And when you look carefully, you see that he's removed it, the title page. Eleanor's nightdress landed on the carpet, and Maggie saw a pair of tights being put on over her bare legs. We have to go to the police again, said Maggie. What for? Eleanor threw a sweater over the wardrobe door. What are you going to tell them? Didn't you notice the way those 2 policemen looked at us last night? Eleanor imitated them. Oh, yes, what was that again, Signora Lorden? Someone broke into your house after you'd been kind enough to switch off the burglar alarm, and this amazingly cunning burglar stole just 1 book, although there are books worth millions in your library, and they took this girl's father and away after he'd offered to go with them in any case. Yes, very interesting. And it seems that these men were working for a man called Capricorn. Doesn't that mean goat or something? Heavens above, child. Eleanor emerged from behind the wardrobe door. She was wearing an unattractive check shirt and a caramel-coloured sweater that made her look as pale as dough. Everyone living around this lake thinks I'm crazy, and if we go back to the police with this story, then the news that Eleanor Lawden has finally flipped will be all over the place, which just goes to show that a passion for books is extremely unhealthy. You dress like an old granny, said Maggie. Eleanor looked down at herself. Thank you very much, she said, but comments on my appearance are uncalled for. Anyway, I could be your granny, with a little stretch of the imagination. Have you ever been married? No, why would I want to? And could you now kindly stop making personal remarks? Hasn't your father ever taught you that it's bad manners? Maggie did not reply. She wasn't sure herself why she had asked the question. This book is very valuable, isn't it? She asked. What, Inkheart? Eleanor took it from Maggie's hand, stroked the binding, and then gave it back. I think so, although you won't find a single copy in any of the catalogues or lists of valuable books. But I'm sure that many collectors would offer your father a very great deal of money if word got around that he has what may be the only copy. Actually, I found out quite a lot about it, and I believe it's not just a rare book, but a good one too. I can't give an opinion on that. I scarcely managed a dozen pages last night. When the first fairy appeared, I fell asleep. I never was particularly keen on stories full of fairies and dwarves and all that stuff. Eleanor went round behind the wardrobe door again, obviously to look at herself in a mirror. Maggie's comment on her clothes seemed to be bothering her after all. Yes, I think it is very valuable, she repeated thoughtfully, although it's almost forgotten now. Hardly anyone seems to remember what it's about. Hardly anyone seems to have read it. You can't even find it in libraries. But now and then these strange stories about it do crop up. They say it's been forgotten only because all the copies that still existed were stolen. I expect that's nonsense. Although it's not just plants and animals that die out, so do books. Quite often, I'm sorry to say. I'm sure you could fill 100 houses like this one to the roof with all the books that have disappeared forever. Eleanor closed the wardrobe again and pinned up her hair with clumsy fingers. As far as I know, the author's still alive, but obviously he's never done anything about getting his book reprinted, which strikes me as odd. I mean, you write a story so that people will read it, don't you? Well, perhaps he just doesn't like his own story anymore, or perhaps it just sold so badly that no publisher was willing to bring it out again. How would I know? All the same, I don't think they stole it just because it's valuable, muttered Maggie. You don't? Eleanor laughed out loud. My word, you really are your father's daughter. Mortimer could never imagine people doing something bad for money, because money has never meant much to him. Do you have any idea what a book can be worth? Maggie looked at her crossly. Yes, I do, but I still don't think that's the reason. I do, and Sherlock Holmes would think so too. Have you ever read those books, by the way? Wonderful stuff, especially on rainy days. Eleanor slipped her shoes on. She had strangely small feet for such a sturdily built woman. Perhaps there's some kind of secret in it, murmured Maggie, thoughtfully caressing the close-printed pages. You mean something like invisible messages written in lemon juice, or a map hidden in one of the pictures showing where to find treasure? Eleanor sounded so sarcastic that Maggie felt like wringing her short neck. Why not? Maggie closed the book again and put it firmly under her arm. Why else would they take Mo too? The book would have been enough. Eleanor shrugged her shoulders. Of course, she can't admit she never thought of that. Maggie told herself scornfully. She always has to be right. Eleanor looked at Maggie as if she had guessed her thoughts. Listen, I tell you what, why don't you read it, she said. You really might find something that you don't think belongs in the story. A few extra words here, a couple of unnecessary letters there, and there's your secret message. The signpost pointing to the treasure. Who knows how long it will be before your father comes back. You'll have to do something to pass the time here. Before Maggie could answer that one, Eleanor bent to pick up a piece of paper lying on the carpet beside her bed. It was Maggie's goodbye note. She must have dropped it when she saw the book in Eleanor's arms. What on earth's this? Asked Eleanor when she read it, frowning. You were planning to go and look for your father? Where, for heaven's sake? You're even more foolish than I thought. Maggie pressed Inkheart close to her. Who else is going to look for him, she said. Her lips began to tremble, and there wasn't a thing she could do about it. Well, then we'll just have to go and look for him together, replied Eleanor, sounding annoyed. But first, let's give him a chance to come back. Do you think he'll be pleased to get back here only to find you've disappeared, gone looking for him in the big wide world? Maggie shook her head. Eleanor's carpet was swimming before her eyes. A tear ran down her nose. Right, that's all settled then, growled Eleanor, offering Maggie a cotton handkerchief. Blow your nose and then we'll have breakfast. She wouldn't let Maggie out of the house before she had eaten a roll and swallowed a glass of milk. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, she announced, buttering her own third slice of bread. And what's more, when your father gets back, I don't want you telling him I've been starving you, like the wicked stepmother in the fairy tale, you know? An answer sprang to the tip of Maggie's tongue, but she swallowed it along with the last of her roll and took the book outside. Chapter 10. The Lion's Den. We are at page 97, so I think this will be our last chapter, and then we'll call it a night. Maggie sat on the bench behind the house. Dustfinger's burnt-out torches were still stuck on the ground beside it. She didn't usually hesitate so long before opening a book, but she was afraid of what was waiting for her inside this one. That was a brand new feeling. She had never before been afraid of what a book would tell her, far from it. Usually she was so eager to let it lead her into an undiscovered world, one she had never been to before, that she often started to read at the most unsuitable moments. Both she and Mo often read at breakfast, and as a result, he had been more than once taken her to school late. And she used to read on the desk at school too, then late at night in bed until Mo pulled back the covers and threatened to take all the books out of her room so that she'd get enough sleep for once. And of course, he would never have done such a thing. And she knew he wouldn't, but for a few days after such a threat, she had put her book under her pillow around 9 in the evening and let it go on whispering to her in her dreams, so that Mo could feel he was being a really good father. She wouldn't have put this book under her pillow for fear of what it might whisper to her. The very first time in her life, Maggie wasn't sure that she wanted to enter the world waiting for her between the covers of a book. All the bad things that had happened over the last 3 days seemed to have come out of this book, and perhaps they were only a faint reflection of what still awaited her inside it. All the same, she had to begin. Where else was she to look for Mo? Eleanor was right. There was no point in simply running off at random. She had to look for Mo's trail among the printed letters in Inkheart, but she had hardly opened it at the first page when she heard footsteps behind her. You'll get sunstroke if you carry on sitting in the full sunlight, said a familiar voice. Maggie spun round. Dustfinger made her a bow. Of course, his face wore its usual smile. Well, what a surprise, he said, leaning over her shoulder and looking at the open book on her lap. So it's here after all. You've got it. Maggie was still looking uncomprehendingly at his scarred face. How could he stand there acting as if nothing had happened? Where have you been? She snapped. Didn't they take you too? And where's Mo? Where have they taken him? She couldn't get the words out fast enough, but Dustfinger took his time over answering. He examined the bushes all around as if he had never seen anything like them before. He was wearing his coat, although the day was so hot that perspiration stood out in gleaming little beads on his forehead. No, they didn't take me too, he said at last, turning to face Maggie again. But I saw them drive off with your father. I ran after them, right through the undergrowth. A couple of times I thought I'd break my neck going down that wretched slope, but I got to the gate just in time to see them driving off south. Naturally, I recognized them at once. Capricorn had sent his best men. Even Basta was with them. Maggie was staring at his lips, as if she could make the words come out of them faster. Do you know where they've taken Mo? Her voice shook with impatience. To Capricorn's village, I think. But I wanted to be sure, said Dustfinger, taking off his coat and draping it over the bench. So I ran after them. I know it sounds silly to run after a car, he added, when Maggie frowned in disbelief. But I was so furious. It had all been for nothing. Me warning you, the 3 of us coming here. Well, I managed to hitch a lift to the next village. They'd filled up the fuel tank there. 4 men in black, not very friendly. And they hadn't been gone long, so I borrowed a moped and tried to go on after them. Don't look at me like that. You can set your mind at rest. I took the moped back later. It wasn't particularly fast, but luckily the roads are very, very winding here, and I eventually saw them again far down in the valley, while I was still making my way around the bends above them. Then I was sure they were taking your father to Capricorn's headquarters, not to one of his hideous hideouts further north, but straight to the Lion's Den. The Lion's Den, Maggie repeated. Where is it? About 300 kilometers south of here, I'd say. Dustfinger sat down on the bench beside her and blinked as he peered at the sun, not far from the coast. Once again he looked at the book still lying on Maggie's lap. Capricorn's not going to be pleased when his men bring him the wrong book, he said. I only hope he doesn't take his disappointment out on your father. But Mo didn't know it was the wrong book. Eleanor swapped them around in secret. There they came again, those infuriating tears. Maggie wiped her eyes on her sleeve. Dustfinger wrinkled his brow, looking at her as if he wasn't sure whether to believe her. She said she just wanted to look at it. She had it in her bedroom. Mo knew the secret place where she'd hidden it, and because the book they took was wrapped in brown paper, he never noticed it was the wrong one, and Capricorn's men didn't check either. Of course not, how could they? Dustfinger's voice was full of scorn. They can't read. One book is much like any other to them, just printed paper. Anyway, they're used to being given everything they want. Maggie's voice was shrill with fear. You must take me to that village, please. She looked pleadingly at Dustfinger. I'll explain everything to Capricorn and give him the book, and then he'll let Mo go, all right? Dustfinger blinked up at the sun again. Yes, of course, he said, without looking at Maggie. That's probably the only solution. But before he could say any more, they heard Eleanor's voice calling from the house. Well, well, what have we here? She cried, leaning out of her open window. Its pale yellow curtain flapped in the wind as if a ghost were caught in it. If it isn't our friend, the matchstick swallower. Maggie jumped up and ran over the lawn towards her. Eleanor, he knows where Mo is, she cried. Does he indeed? Eleanor leaned on the windowsill and scrutinized Dustfinger through narrowed eyes. Put that book down, she snapped at him. Maggie, take the book away from him. Taken aback, Maggie turned round. Dustfinger really was holding Inkheart. But when Maggie looked at him, he quickly put it back down on the bench. Then, with a nasty glance in Eleanor's direction, he beckoned her over. Hesitantly, Maggie went to him. Yes, all right, I'll take you to your father, even though it may be dangerous for me, whispered Dustfinger when she was beside him. But she stays here, understand? He slightly nodded his head in Eleanor's direction. Maggie looked uncertainly at the house. Like me to guess what he whispered to you, called Eleanor across the lawn. Dustfinger cast Maggie a warning glance, but she ignored it. He's going to take me to Mo, she called back. A good idea, called Eleanor, but I'm coming too, even if the pair of you might prefer to do without my company. We certainly might, muttered Dustfinger, smiling guilelessly at Eleanor. But who knows, perhaps we can swap her for your father. I dare say Capricorn could do with another maidservant. I know she's no good at cooking, but perhaps she can do the laundry, even if that's not something you learn from books. Maggie had to laugh, although she couldn't tell from Dustfinger's face if he was joking or meant it seriously. And that, dear listeners, is unfortunately 102 pages read. So we'll have to put a pin in it at chapter 11 and reconvene at another point. I feel like I need to blink a whole bunch. Is anyone still awake? Okay. Well, I do not know if any of the others are still awake or still listening. Yup, okay. Nuggy's still awake. Shall we raid out to someone, or shall we end the stream here so that if anyone has fallen asleep, they will not get woken up by a person doing a stream? What do we think? You sound like your voice is about to die. It's still there. I could keep going, but it is definitely getting a little bit like, I don't know, you know? To be fair to me, I have been reading for about 3.5 hours out loud. What's the cute idea, Wolf? You don't mind? Fair enough. We can do whatever you want. Little bonfire in a corner where all the lurkers sit. I will do my best to find something. I may end up having to commission someone to get a background done, which I'm not excited for because money. But I will see what I can do. Maybe I'll try and throw something together in Canva. I can't guarantee it's going to work, but actually, it's not the worst idea I've ever had. Let me make a note that you want a little bonfire. It was beautiful. Thanks for the stream so far. You're very welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun myself. Well, we can raid out or we can go to bed. Your stream was amazing. Thanks. I try. Hopefully, the next time we do a reading stream, I will have an appropriate background and maybe a different book asset. You can read if you want. I think we'll just end for the evening. I think on reading streams we'll just end instead of raiding out. I keep this VOD and fall asleep to it later. It'll be on YouTube in due time. I put all the VODs on YouTube anyway. But we will of course put this one on YouTube as well. It'll be Inkheart Part 1. Reading streams are the best. I'm glad you guys enjoy them. Apparently I need to train up my voice so that we can ensure I do not die on future reading streams. Haha. Ah, it'll start the jump for to end it. Beautiful. Yeah, so I will do my best to get VODs up tomorrow. So hopefully we'll get Inkheart up as well. But I do upload them in order. And I think there are a couple behind this one. But I'll try and get as many up as possible in amongst cleaning the apartment. Night night, onwards. Keep well. Good night, nephew Godcat. Keep well. Keep well, everyone. I will go to bed now. Hee ha ha. And I hope to see you tomorrow for Valo Sunday. Thank you, Wolf. Rest well yourself. Hee ha ha. Good to see you again. Good night, Nagi. Okay. Good night, everyone. I will see you when I see you. Hopefully tomorrow, 8 p.m. BST. Ha. Maybe a little bit earlier. I think we're actually going to go for like 6 or 7 start tomorrow. Because I missed doing Valorant on Wednesday because we ended up spending so much time on Hollow Knight that day. However, though, did make a lot of progress, so go me. Haha. Okay. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow. It's been lovely. Thank you for hanging with me. We'll get the VODs up ASAP. And we can do another reading stream hopefully soon. Have a good evening.